now open and sitting for the dispatch of his regular business. The Honorable James F. Emmons Jr., Judge, President, Presiding, God save the state, and this honorable court, please be seated.
All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. There you go. Somebody's changed this chair. All right, my name is Jim Ammons. I'm the senior resident Superior Court judge here in Cumberland County. I want to welcome all of you down here. We've done this for since about 1872, right? Sometimes twice a year, but almost always at least once a year. I appreciate Ms. Vonnegut allowing me to participate. I want you to have a good time today. I want you to learn some things and then show me what you've learned. Show Ms. Vonnegut too. I've got a lot of students here, and we also have some high school students, right? Now, my understanding that if you successfully complete this entire trial, where are the Jack Britt students? Raise your hands. If you successfully complete watching this trial, you will be admitted to Methodist University in the future. I want to warn you about a couple things. We're going to try to finish by 5, and then the bailiffs want us out of here. And I know the crew need some time to pack up. I do have some regular duties I've been trying to do today. That's why I'm a couple minutes late. We have a big homicide case starting Monday. And at some point, a law enforcement officer will come through that door and get your attention. If you'll get my attention, then when we get to a natural stopping point, I'm going to have to stop and do a search warrant for that law enforcement officer. Okay, got me? Okay, where is Jasmine, the clerk? And what is Jasmine's last name? Johnson? All right, ready to begin?
We're ready.
All right, what says the state?
Your Honor, the state is bringing charges against the defendant according to the General Statute for North Carolina for voluntary manslaughter.
Who's the defendant?
Darren Wilson,
What's he charged with?
voluntary manslaughter.
All right, can you identify yourself for the court?
I am a state prosecuting attorney for North Carolina, and my name is Beth Eford.
One more time?
Beth Eford.
Okay.
And these are my co-counselors.
My name is Madeline Young. I'm prosecuting attorney for the state.
My name is Kaylee Heller. I'm a prosecuting attorney for the state.
Heller?
Yes, sir.
I'm Charlie. My name is Jada Shaw.
All right, and where's the defendant? All right, has he been previously arraigned?
Yes.
All right, and who represents him?
I'm Emily Nelson for the defense.
Emily?
Nelson.
Okay.
I'm Mia Curran for the defense.
How do you spell your first name?
Mia, M-I-A,
Curran.
C-U-R-R-I-N.
Okay.
Adrian Robinson for the Adrian Robinson.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, you can have a seat. And have y'all discussed any, y'all can all have a seat. You discussed any possible pleas? Y'all done with the plea bargaining? Any plea that you're offered is now expired? All right, any motions?
May I approach the bench, Your Honor?
Where's the bailiff?
I present a motion to suppress based on
Can
federal
you, can you tell the
regulations.
jury to just chill out back there in the back room, and we'll get to them a little bit? They're already in the back room.
some federal regulations that the physician's full legal name and.
Whoa.
Haley, back up. You gave the motion, now back up. Okay. Because you have to give them the motion. They have to know what they're arguing.
All right, this is a motion to suppress?
Yes.
And what is all this other stuff?
It is the findings and evidence to support the motion to suppress.
You don't expect me to read all this, do you?
No, I don't.
All right, you got a copy of the motion to suppress?
No.
You got a copy for them?
I do not.
Okay. What do y'all say?
What exactly is being asked to be suppressed?
Don't know. They can give you a copy.
I object to the motion to suppress.
Sustained. Denied. All right, are we ready to start jury selection? All right, let's bring them in. Okay, how these people look to you?
Pretty good.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're here today to help us with a criminal matter. The defendant, Darren Wilson, if you'd stand up, please, sir, is charged with voluntary manslaughter. He's represented by Adron Robinson, Mia Curran, and Emily Nelson. Okay? To this charge of voluntary manslaughter, he has entered a plea of not guilty. Have a seat, sir. State of North Carolina is represented by 3 assistant district attorneys, Beth Eford. Stand up, take a look at the jury. Madeline Young and Kaylee Heller. It'll be the state's job to prove to each and every one of you, beyond a reasonable doubt, to your unanimous satisfaction, that the defendant is guilty of this charge. Every charge in our state is made up of things called elements. I'll tell you what the elements are at the end of the trial. Okay, y'all ready to call your first witness?
Your Honor, may I approach the jury for opening statement?
Oh, you'd like to do that? Oh, okay, that'd be good. I didn't fool you, did I? All right, ladies and gentlemen, the lawyers are going to make opening statements. Opening statements are not evidence in the case. They're simply a forecast of what the attorney believes the competent and admissible evidence will be. You may proceed.
For every decision we make, there are repercussions for them may be bad, good, or indifferent. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I'm Bethany Brett, State Prosecuting Attorney. Today, we are bringing a case, not just any case, but a case of a man who is seen by the community as a big brother, a son, a sibling, and an overall good guy. On August 9, 2014, this man's life was taken from him. He and his friend was walking back from the store when the defendant started battering him to get onto the sidewalk. He persisted to continue to batter the victim. Today, this victim cannot be here to tell his testimony about the defendant. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Michael Brown is not only seen as a good guy, but he has siblings, younger siblings, that he cannot even tell the story to. On August 9th, the defendant went into an altercation with our victim, and it led to him killing our victim. Not only killing him, but shooting him 6 times as our victim was falling on the ground. Today, you will hear witnesses who may have witnessed the entire incident. His mourning mother will come and present her case of how her son didn't even get to go to college as he wished, to major in heating and cooling. He had a passion for music, and he wished to have produced music as well. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is not just any case. This is a big brother that has taken from the community of Utopia. And in the crowd today, you will see that there are mourning witnesses. There are people from this community who just want justice for our victim, Michael Brown. The defense will also put witnesses on the stand who will claim that he done everything correctly as a defendant. As a law enforcement officer, someone who is supposed to protect and serve this community has failed to protect and serve this community. Instead, he has put hurt and sorrow and mourning onto this community. And now we're having to deal with what the repercussions of that is. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, they will also put a PA onto the stand who will claim that the defendant was battered as well. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I can only hope that you listen to the evidence and make us believe that it's sufficient enough to get a guilty verdict of voluntary manslaughter, remembering that voluntary manslaughter is the killing of a human being without malice. Thank you.
All right, will there be an opening statement from the defense at this time, or do you want to wait till you present your evidence?
There will.
All right, you may proceed.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Morning.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I come before you today with great honor to represent Officer Darren Wilson. Today, we will not be talking about an officer, but a man. A man like each and every one of us in this courtroom. A man who loves his community. A man who takes it upon himself every day to wake up, to put on his bulletproof vest, his duty belt, and strap up his boots for his community, to make his community a better place. A man on the day in question was doing everything correct to make his community a better place. A man who did not believe that the day in question would alter his life forever. On the day in question, August 9th, 2014, Darren Wilson was making a routine stop. He was talking to two gentlemen who he just wanted to get the situation over with quickly and effortlessly. On that day, Michael Brown brutally assaulted my client. With clear disregard for law, Michael Brown entered into my client's patrol car and assaulted him. Michael Brown then proceeded to charge at my client with nothing but ill intent and malice in his heart. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would like for you to sit and think. In this situation, when all you want to do is serve and protect your community, a man who has no regard for authority, no regard for the law, does everything in his power to hurt you. Michael Brown was not a small man, a 6'4", 290-pound man with everything in his mind to hurt you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, tell me what you would do in that situation. As you hear everything from the prosecution as well as the defense, my defense team will bring forward to you a businessman of the community to show you what they saw during the incident. They will bring forth a first lady of the community to show you what she saw during the incident. They will bring forth Darren Wilson's supervisor to speak on the integrity, the hard work, effort of Darren Wilson. We will bring forth the physician's assistant who will support the fact that Michael Brown brutally assaulted my client. And we will also bring forth Darren Wilson himself. Now, do you think Darren Wilson, if he had any malice in his heart, any ill intent, would come here today wanting for you to hear his side of the story? Darren Wilson is a man that loves his community, that wants nothing but to make Utopia a better place. I charge each and every one of you that as you listen today and hear everything from both sides, that you will believe that my client is not guilty. Thank you.
All right, call your first witness.
Your Honor, we would like to call Leslie McSpadden to the stand.
Who?
Leslie McSpadden.
Okay. You do so.
Me.
Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right. Let me see the Bible. Hold on a second. Got a special Bible for you here.
your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You may be seated.
Mr. Sheriff, come on up. All right, you may proceed.
Will you please state your name for the court?
Leslie is back.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a cashier for,
Now, I can hear you, but I don't think anybody else in this room can hear you.
I'm a cashier for mine.
And where do you reside?
You told me to look for mine.
Thank you. And can you please tell us what happened on August 9, 2014?
I was at work on break when an officer came to where I was and told me that my son had been shot. My coworker had calmed me down long enough for me to get drove to the scene. And that's where I saw my son under a white sheet. I couldn't even identify him. Officers wouldn't tell me what's going on. They were unprofessional, waving their guns at me, giving me the bird, and I couldn't properly say goodbye to my son. He was laying there for hours. No one would tell me I couldn't see my baby. How would that make you feel?
Ms. McSpadden, I would like to give you my condolences for the loss of your son. But you said that the officers weren't acting professional. Can you please describe that?
They waved their guns at me and gave me the bird.
Objection.
Overruled.
Say what you want, I think it's racially motivated. Because I'm black, my son is black, and there's nothing but white officers there. Nobody's telling me what's going on. My son was gonna go to college for heating and cooling. He liked music. And now I have to explain to my 2 younger children how come their brother can't come home. They don't understand he's dead. They don't understand why or how he was taken away. He wasn't just a big brother to him, it was the whole community. Everyone looked up to him. Just take it away like that. I raised him.
Ms. McSpadden, was he ever a troublesome child?
No. Everyone liked him. He was my kids loved him. Everyone looked up to Big Mike.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Need a minute, ma'am. Okay. Right, your witness.
We have no questions.
Any other questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Please be careful, there's some steps there. All right, next witness.
Your Honor, we would like to call Peyton Matthews to the stand, please.
Place your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated.
You proceed.
Can Can you please state your name for the court?
Peyton Matthews,
And where do you reside?
the Canfield Apartments in Utopia, North Carolina.
And can you recall what happened on August 9, 2014?
Well, I was standing in the kitchen with my fiance, and he told me they were shooting outside. So I got off the phone with my little sister, and I went to my patio, and sure enough, there was an altercation going on outside.
Can you describe what you seen or heard?
Well, after I set my food down and I got to the patio, I seen Mike Brown and Officer Wilson having an altercation, and I just kept hearing shooting.
Can you tell us how many times you heard the shots fired?
I'm not sure, but I know I heard a lot. It seemed like round after round.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. You're the witness.
Ms. Matthews, can you, in your statement transcript, you said that you had to go from the kitchen to your window. How long would you say that took?
Maybe 3-4 seconds, not long at all.
Okay, just now you said that you saw the altercation, but in your statement, you said you did not see the altercation between.
Well,
Mr.
I heard the
Wilson.
gunshots and I seen the aftermath of it.
So you did not see the altercation?
Not the whole entire thing, no, because I had to set my food down.
Did you hear Officer Wilson command Michael Brown?
I did not.
Can you tell for the courts how many people you discussed the incident with before you talked to investigating officers?
I was on the phone with my fiance and my little sister, or my little fiance was there, and I was on the phone with my little sister.
So you did not discuss the incident with anyone before having
No,
conversation?
not that I can recall.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. There's some steps there, please be careful. Are you next witness?
Sawyer Brown.
Please left hand Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? You may be seated.
Could you state your name for the court?
I'm Sonia Brown.
You're gonna have to speak up too.
Are you currently in school?
No,
What school did you go to?
Utopia High School.
And what year were you in 2014?
I was a senior.
Where were you on August 9th, 2014?
I was chilling with my dad's apartment.
And where does your dad live?
He lives in the Canfield Apartments.
Is that near the scene of the crime?
Yeah, that stuff happened right outside my window.
And what drew your attention to the windows?
Well, I heard some arguing and I heard a shot.
And how do you know what gunshots sound like?
Well, when you live in the neighborhood long enough, you get used to hearing the sound.
So you're positive you heard gunshots outside your window?
Yeah, I heard some shots.
Can you explain what you saw outside your window for the court?
So when I looked outside, I saw these two men in the cop car, and it looked like they were like arguing with the cop about something. And there was a bigger guy, he like reached inside the car for something, and the cop went to pull out a taser to like tase him, but he missed. And then after that, he went to pull out like a regular gun, and he missed him with that too. But it just looked like they were arguing about something.
What did the two men look like?
So there was the bigger guy, I don't remember what color shirt he was wearing, but he was wearing those khaki shorts, and he was wearing these god-awful yellow and black socks. I remember them because they reminded me of the Steelers. I don't like them. And then there was another guy, he was a smaller guy, he wore, I think it was a white shirt, and he had on black shorts, and he had dreads.
And while looking out the window, did you see what the officer was holding in his hand?
He was holding a taser.
Are you positive it was a taser?
I mean, yeah, I guess so.
Did you watch everything that took place outside of your window?
Nah.
Why?
So my girl Nicki Minaj was on TV, and I really thought the stuff was over with outside. I just didn't care anymore after that. It looked like the officer was just gonna like leave or like arrest him or something. Like, I don't really know. It seemed pretty pointless to me. So I went back to the TV, like, whatever. Cause I believe it was the Pink Fingerprint album or something like that. It was one of those songs from that album. That's my favorite album by Nicki. So that's what I remember. I just stopped watching. I stopped caring.
How many gunshots did you hear?
I heard about 4 or 5 shots.
And did you ever go back to the window?
Yeah, I went back to watch afterwards.
And what did you see?
So when I looked back, I just saw the big guy. He was on the ground bleeding, and the cop was just standing over him.
Is there anything else you think the court needs to know about the events that took place on August 9th, 2014?
I mean, I know I ain't see the cop shoot him, but the way he was standing over him and the guy was like on the ground bleeding, I assume he shot the cop. I assume he shot the guy. I assume the cop shot the guy.
So you say you didn't see the entire altercation between Darren Wilson and Michael Brown?
Nah.
At any point in time, did you close your eyes or turn away?
Yeah, I went back to the TV to watch Nicki.
Since you closed your eyes and walked away, what did you actually see?
I saw Nicki on TV, and when I went back, I saw the big guy on the ground bleeding and the cop standing over him.
Nothing further.
Yeah, you may be correct. All right, next witness.
Your Honor, I would like to call Quinn Johnson to the stand.
Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may be seated.
Can you please state your name for the court?
Yeah, Quinn Johnson.
What occupation do you work in currently?
I'm currently a sales representative.
Where do you live?
The Canterfield Drive Apartments in Utopia.
Do you remember anything unordinary happening on August 9th, 2014?
Yes, I heard a couple loud noises, so I went to my balcony on the 3rd floor to see what was going on. When I got to my balcony, I seen this guy hovering over the driver's side of a police car. And after that, I heard some more loud noises, and the guy turned around and ran away.
And after that, what happened?
Well, the cop got out and started following him. After following him for a little bit, he started shooting like in his direction, and a couple of stray bullets flew by, and one hit my neighbor's window. Yeah.
Did you see the victim, Michael Brown, have a weapon?
No, I didn't see it.
Did you see the victim, Michael Brown's hands in the air?
Yeah, after a couple of shots, he turned around and got in like a pretty defensive state and had his hands up.
What happened after the victim turned around to face the defendant?
When he turned around, he had his hands up, of course, and then the cop just shot him.
While the defendant shot the victim, what did his face look like?
It was kind of red. It might have been from anger. I don't really know.
And what did the victim do after he was shot by the defendant?
Well, after he was shot, he fell to the ground.
And what did the defendant do after the victim fell to the ground?
He kind of just backed up a little bit and turned around and started doing crowd control like nothing happened.
Did you see the defendant, Darren Wilson, kill the victim, Michael Brown?
Yeah, after he shot him, he definitely killed him.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Johnson, in your transcript with the investigating officer, you said that Michael Brown was resisting, and then you changed your answer to say he was not resisting. Which one is it?
Well, I don't think he was resisting, but he was definitely running away.
So you're not sure what he was actually doing?
I'm not positive.
You said earlier in your report with the officer, you said that that Mr. Wilson was standing 3 feet away from Michael Brown, and later you said that he was standing 2 to 3 yards. Which one is it?
It was more like 2 or 3 feet.
So why was your answer changed later in your report with the investigating
I'm
officer?
not sure why I changed it.
You said that you were on the 3rd floor. Could your depth perception have been off because you were so far up?
What do you mean?
Could you have confused the fact of how far Darren Wilson was from Michael Brown because how far you were up?
I don't think so.
Did you hear Mr. Wilson say anything to Michael Brown during the altercation? How many people did you talk to before you went to the investigating officer?
I was waiting on my supervisor, but I didn't speak to anyone that I recall about it.
Okay, because in your investigative report, it says that during you said that you heard and you talked to a few people and you were beginning to say something that you heard. So is that true that you did not talk to anyone, or did you talk to people in the
No, I
community?
didn't speak to anyone.
No further questions, ma'am.
Can you redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. All right, your next witness.
Your Honor, I would like to call Aaron Justice in this name.
Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated.
Can you please state your name for the court?
Aaron Justice,
Where do you reside?
Canfield Apartment.
Is that near the scene of the crime?
Yes,
Well, where were you at the time of the shooting?
I was in my apartment
What time of day was that?
around noon.
If you can speak up just a little.
What made you hesitate coming forward?
I had some people I loved that I want to protect.
And what did compel you to come forward?
I seen all these other stories going around, but I knew mine was the only true one.
So what exactly did you see?
I was looking out my window in my bedroom, and I see Mike and some other guy walking down the middle of the road. I seen a cop pull past them at this point. I knew something was about to happen. So I walk out my front door to the porch area, and that's when I see Mike in the cop car, and something's going on. Some kind of scuffle I've never seen one before.
I'm having a hard time hearing you now. I'm right here.
Okay.
Just slow down just a little bit louder.
So, when I got to my porch, I seen Mike in the car, the cop car, and something was going on, some kind of scuffle. I couldn't really tell exactly what was going on, but after a few seconds I heard pow, and I seen Mike run to the curb by the tree.
So did you know Michael Brown?
I did.
And had you ever had any problems with him in the neighborhood before?
Oh, no, he always respected me and everybody I know, and all the younger kids looked up to him.
So you always had good altercations with Michael Brown?
Yes.
What was Mike Brown doing when he turned around?
He had his hands about right here.
So yes or no, was Michael Brown's hands raised in surrender when he turned around?
Yes.
When you said in your statement that you could see something on his hands, what color was it?
It was red.
And what did you think it was?
I would think it would be blood.
When you said in your statement that Brown took 2 to 3 steps towards Wilson, how was he walking?
Yeah, steps is overstatement. It's more of a stumble, more of like a implants of pain, I would say.
And did Brown say anything that you could hear?
Yeah, I heard help and stop.
And how did Officer Wilson react?
He kept shooting and didn't stop.
So at any point in time, did you see Officer Wilson stop shooting once he began?
No, he did not. And if he did, I think Mike would still be alive.
Objection.
Sustained. Disregard the last comment by the jury, by the witness, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
So did you see Darren Wilson shoot and kill Mike Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Justice, you said you witnessed the altercation in the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And you said that Officer Wilson was in the car. Michael Brown was outside the car, correct?
Yes.
And you said that Michael Brown was up against the car, basically. There was no way for Wilson to get out of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, I would say.
And you said altercation, did it look like they were tussling or fighting, correct?
Yeah, it did.
And you said that you heard a gunshot, correct?
Yes.
And it was Wilson that shot the gun, correct?
I would assume so.
In your investigative statement, you you call yourself an artist, correct?
Yes.
You said you took some classes, some art classes, you're either trying to draw out the sketch of the crime scene to give a better viewpoint for the detective, correct?
Yes.
So would you say you have a creative mind?
I would like to think so.
Is it possible that what you believe you saw did not happen?
I believe everything I seen was what I said.
You said that Officer Wilson shot the gun, but you also said that you could not see into the car, correct?
Right.
So you're making the assumption that it was Wilson that shot the gun, without a foundation that it was Wilson,
Objection.
Overruled. You
correct?
can answer.
I believe so.
No further question.
Can you redirect?
Did you see Michael Brown turn and walk away from the police car in the initial altercation?
Yes, I did.
And did you see Officer Wilson then pursue Mike Brown?
Yes.
And did you see Officer Wilson then shoot Mike Brown after he had already walked away from the police car?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any recross?
In your statement, you said that you heard Officer Wilson tell Michael Brown to stop when he started coming towards him, correct?
Yes.
But Michael Brown continued to charge at Officer Wilson.
Charge. It was more of a stumble.
No further question.
Anything else?
In his stumble, did he walk more than 5 feet towards Officer Wilson?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any recross?
Yes. Sir, how are you sure that it wasn't more than 5 feet?
I was just using my best assumption.
So you're not positive that it was 5 feet? He could have stumbled further?
Not with the short.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
Was Michael Brown within arm's reach of Officer Wilson?
No.
Thank you.
No further questions.
You both done. We're going to release him from his subpoena. All right, let's vote.
Your Honor, I would like to call crime scene investigator Agent Ryan Green to the stand.
Place your hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You ready, sir?
Come get him again.
Brian Green?
I don't see him on the witness list.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench?
Mhm. Okay, for the record, your last name is Greaney.
Correct.
How do you pronounce that?
Great.
Okay. This is a supplemental witness list, and one the court was given. Okay, thank you very much.
Can you please state your name for the court?
Brian Green?
What is your occupation currently?
I am a crime scene investigator for Utopia Police Department.
What are your qualifications?
Graduated Methodist College in 1988 with a bachelor's in political science and military science. Joined the Army. I was a MP and CID agent for 18 years and retired after 26 years before completing my master's in crime scene investigation, and I work now for Utopia Police Department. Been there just shy of 5 years.
And how many crime scenes have you worked prior to this one?
Well over 200.
Did anything unusual happen on August 9th, 2014?
There was a homicide with a shooting, possible subjective police officer involved shooting. When I got called to the crime scene, it was very hectic. There was a lot of commotion. It was in a very busy neighborhood. There was a lot of police cars out. Crime scene was secured. The officer that was supposed to have shot the victim he had already departed the crime scene, and the body was covered at that time.
While at the crime scene, did you take notes?
Yes, ma'am.
Would it aid your testimony today to have those notes in front of you?
Yes, absolutely, as well as my crime scene sketch as well, please.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Agent Green, do you recognize these notes?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know they're yours?
That's my handwriting?
And have they been altered since the last time you saw them?
No.
Were you provided a copy of the notes in discovery?
Yes.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay, you may proceed.
What time did you arrive at the scene?
13:20.
And how long did you spend at the crime scene?
Approximately 6.5 hours. I left around 19:20, 19:30.
And while at the crime scene, did you do a sketch?
Yes, ma'am.
Would it aid your testimony today to have that sketch in front of you?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Agent Ryan Green, do you recognize the sketch?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know this is yours?
It's my handwriting.
Has this been altered since the last time you saw them?
This is the other picture. No, that's not been altered.
Your Honor, I would like to offer this sketch into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Y'all got a copy of this?
Yes.
Any objection?
No objection.
Are you offering it for illustrative purposes or substantive purposes? Okay? Court will receive it without objection. Yes.
Your Honor, I think she'd also like to have that published to the jury as soon as done.
Your Honor, I would like to publish this to the jury.
Okay. You have copies?
Yes, sir.
All right, you may proceed.
Can you describe to the court what the crime scene looked like when you arrived?
So the crime scene, Jerry, if you look up to the top right of the page, there's a North Star that orients the map, or orients the sketch. Police officer, the squad car was facing north, and the victim was facing towards the vehicle. Everything you see labeled number 1 through 10 are .40 caliber shell casings. Some are projected by the car. There's 3, 4, 5, and 6 are midway, and then the remainder are by the victim. 11 through 12 are the bracelet, 13 is the hat, and 14 is broken glass. We can't say if it was from the shooting or if it was possible that Michael Brown did break the glass or if it was from a discharged round. 16 and 17 are the slippers or the flip-flops that Michael Brown was wearing. And number 18 is the Chevy Tahoe that Darren Wilson was driving the officer.
And while at the crime scene, what else did you do?
So once I arrived, we took pictures of the crime scene, documented everything. Detective Lewis, she contained all evidence. I took crime scene notes, sketches, I took a photography log, and that was before I left by 1930.
Would having these photographs aid your testimony today?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Mm-hmm.
Agent Ryan Green, how do you know these are yours? Do you recognize these?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know these are yours?
Because I took them.
Have they been altered in any way since you last saw them?
No, ma'am.
Are these a fair and accurate representation of the crime scene?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would like to offer exhibits 2 and 3 into evidence.
Any objection?
Which ones are exhibit 2 and 3?
Will they aid you in your testimony today?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
They're admitted.
I would also like to publish those photos to the jury.
Okay, you have copies?
There, Your Honor. Could you hold them up while you describe them?
Why don't you come down there in front of the jury? Get a little closer, yeah.
All right.
Try to stand and show the photographs so that all 27 of the jurors can see.
Okay, so this is Exhibit 2. This shows the victim facing.
Let's wait for a question.
Oh,
Agent Green, could you please describe exhibit 2 to the court?
absolutely. So this is Exhibit 2. This shows the victim laying face first. These are projected gunshot wounds. I cannot answer for that. And I cannot tell you where he was hit. But he's laying face down, and you can see his flip flops in the rear of the image.
Agent Green, could you describe exhibit 3 to the court? Jury?
All right. These shows rest of the casings between 4 and 10, most likely 6 through 10, that were shot midway between the squad car and then the final rounds that were shot between the officer and the victim. And this is him laying again face down.
While you were photographing the crime scene, did you ever find a weapon laying around Michael Brown and a weapon in his hand?
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, no further questions.
Okay, you have a seat. The witness?
Mr. Green, you said that you arrived at the crime scene about 13:20.
Correct.
Great. And when you got there, Detective Lewis was already at the scene, had secured the crime scene, correct?
Correct.
And you said that you didn't leave until 19:30, 19:20?
Correct.
Great. And you said that you didn't leave until Detective Lewis had secured everything, correct? All the evidence?
All evidence was already, yes, correct.
So, according to Detective Lewis, it says that all the evidence was bagged and finished at 17:08, correct?
Correct.
So why were you still on scene?
Finishing my photo logs, finishing my, my sketch, and completing my notes. Her and I work separately.
And on the sketch, if you want to refer to it, I don't know if it's okay. Is the direction in which you have the feet, is that relevant to how it was when you took the photograph?
Correct.
But according to the report, both feet are supposed to be facing west. His head is supposed to be facing opposite direction, yet on the thing
It's a stick figure
yeah,
on the sketch. I didn't really orient it and it's face down.
but the sketch is supposed to be true to the crime scene, correct?
It says not drawn to scale, and it was a rough sketch.
But not drawn to scale doesn't mean it's not true to the crime scene, correct?
It is true to the crime scene with the measurements, which are on the second page.
Correct.
If you look on the second page, it actually says left foot, right foot, and I have the exact inches to measurements from the squad car, 4 different reference points as well.
And you said when you arrived, okay. You said when you arrived it was a busy scene, correct?
Correct.
Is there any chance that anybody before the crime scene was secured, there could have been anything moved, misplaced?
There was no one in the crime scene when I arrived. Everything was taped off and no one was on the inside perimeter.
But there's a possibility before.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
Overruled.
So there's a possibility beforehand that anything could have been disturbed?
I can answer that one, then.
No further questions.
Can you redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Soon comes out, probably next week.
Your Honor, I would like to call to the stand Detective Lewis.
Put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. You may proceed.
Can you please state your name for the court?
Oh, yes, Detective Lewis,
How long have you been with the Utopia Police Department?
the past 20 years,
How long have you been a detective?
for the past 12.
Please tell the court about your qualifications.
Oh, yes, I graduated from Memphis University with a criminal justice degree, 4-year degree, bachelor's, and then we always do BLET for every officer that's going to be sworn, and then obviously training with the department every 2 years. We have run-up training.
Could you describe to the jury what BLET is?
Hold on a second.
please?
What is VLET?
So BLET is basic law enforcement training. It's a training that you have to pass and be qualified to be a sworn officer.
How many cases have you investigated in your career?
Definitely more than 100. I can't be an exact number on that.
Did anything unusual happen on August 9th, 2014?
Yes, I got a call about a possible manslaughter case. Once I arrived to the scene, I learned that it was actually an officer involved shooting. This is strange in itself because most officers never take their gun from their belt, let alone after fire.
How many
Objection?
cases-
Sustained. Anything else you want to say?
Isn't it speculation? It's like assuming.
I've ruled for you. What else you want to say?
Can you strike that from the record?
Sure.
How many cases like
Wait.
this?
And the third part is? Objection.
Objection.
Sustained. Move to strike. Strike. Third part. Would you instruct the jury? Very good.
Ayes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I instruct you not to pay any attention to the last comment by the detective.
How many cases like this one have you investigated in your career?
Only 2 that I can think of.
While you were at the crime scene, afterwards, did you write up an investigative report?
Yes, I did. We were required by our department.
Would it aid you in your testimony today to have this investigative report in front of you? Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Detective Lewis, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
How do you know this is yours?
Well, it has my investigative report number on it and my name.
Has this been altered in any way since you last saw it?
No.
Detective Lewis, what time did you receive the initial phone call about the crime?
Yes, I received the phone call at 12:43 p.m. And then I drove over to the Canfield Drive and got there at 1:30.
And what information were you given in the initial phone call about the crime scene?
Just that there was a body and that, just that there was a body and that the crime scene had already been secured.
Can you describe what the crime scene looked like when you arrived?
Once I had arrived, there was angry bystanders pushing through the crime scene, sworn officers with their guns, horrible incident with a young man laying on the ground.
And could you describe what the victim, Michael Brown, looked like when you arrived?
Yes, Michael Brown had his face on the sidewalk, stomach down, blood everywhere. He was wearing a gray t-shirt, khaki shorts, yellow socks,
and, he had slides on, but they were not on his body when I arrived.
And can you describe the victim's condition when you arrived at the crime scene?
The victim was dead. Before I had gotten there, the officer who had, the officer that secured the crime scene had flagged down EMS, who there showed that he was, did check for his vitals and everything, found that he was no longer with us. And also, the medical examiner came and confirmed that.
What was your role at the crime scene?
My role was to, one, interview any witnesses, also collecting evidence.
And during your investigation of the crime scene, what items of evidentiary value did you find?
We found multiple shell casings. Those were Federal 40s, Smith & Wessons. We also found 2 bracelets, one being under the driver's side tire and the other under the passenger's. Also a red Cardinals hat that was underneath the officer's car as well. And broken glass is also found on the crime scene.
During your observations, did the victim have a weapon on his body?
No, I did not find a weapon in his right hand or his left hand, and there was no weapon around him.
What wounds did you see on the victim's body?
The victim had multiple wounds that seemed like suspected gunshots. There was one on his right hand, right arm, head, and left forearm.
And following your role at the crime scene, how else were you involved in this case?
So I did all the interviewing with all the suspected eyewitnesses. Also with Darren Wilson himself. During that interview, he told me everything from the beginning, when he was traveling on his sick call, to when the final act had finished.
And what did you?
Hold on one second. He told you everything from the beginning, and what did you say after that?
Oh, he had a sick call that he was coming from before the incident had started.
Okay. Did you mention that before? The sick call?
What's the question, Your Honor?
I didn't, that surprised me. Maybe I was asleep earlier, but did you mention that earlier?
It is in his report and in also mine.
Okay, I'm not seeing the report. All right, go ahead.
And when did you interview the defendant, Darren Wilson?
I had interviewed him twice, one at around 4 p.m. the night of the incident, and then again at 10:30 the next day, August 10th.
When you were interviewing the defendant, Darren Wilson, did he ever show remorse about his actions?
No, I wouldn't say not. He was very case in point. This happened. He didn't really care about the fact that a man was dead.
So he didn't seem sorry at all?
No, I would say not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
For clarification, what time did you say you got to the scene?
I arrived at the scene at 1:30 or 13:30.
Did you take any notes at the crime scene?
Yes, I did. That's what required by our department to do so.
How do you know those are your notes?
How do I know what's coming up? Well, obviously, there's my case number on it, and my name, and it's my handwriting.
When you interviewed Darren Wilson, what was his demeanor?
As I said before, he was very to the point. He was
Objection.
What's your objection?
Asked and answered.
Overruled. I was waiting for that. You may continue to question along those lines.
What did his statement indicate to you?
What did his statement indicate to me?
Objection.
What's your objection now?
Irrelevant.
Sounds pretty interesting.
Overruled.
Overruled.
I'm confused by the question.
Why don't we start over with the first question she objected to about demeanor? I didn't hear anything juicy after that.
What was the defendant's demeanor during his interview?
So his demeanor was he back the case. He was answering it like it's not his personal view, like he wasn't there, he was answering, this is what happened, and that's all he
Nothing further.
Nothing further?
did. Okay.
Okay. All right, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Let's call the next one.
Your Honor, I would like to call Taylor Wilson to the stand, please.
Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
You may be seated.
Hold on just one second. All right, I apologize. Tell me your name.
Taylor Wilson, or
Taylor Wilson.
Taylor Wilson.
All right, you may proceed.
Can you please state your name for the court,
Taylor Wilson,
and where do you reside?
in Utopia, North Carolina, here.
Ms. Wilson, what do you do for a living?
I'm a medical examiner for the Utopia Police Department.
You're a medical examiner, correct?
Correct.
So that means that you're a doctor?
Yes, I went to medical school at the American University of the Caribbean School of Medicine.
And can you tell us a little bit about your undergraduate degrees?
Yes, I went to the University of Missouri Columbia, got my bachelor's in anthropology. I also went and got my bachelor's in biology and a minor in chemistry. And then I went and got my master's in biology as well.
And do you have any specialized training?
I attend 2 conferences every year because I'm a member of the American Association of Forensic Science as well as the Medical Examiners and Coroners Association.
And how many years of experience would you say you have in this field?
More than 25.
How many autopsies have you performed?
About 300.
And do you have any other special qualifications?
I have written and published many papers on updating autopsy procedures as well as the use of DNA.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to tender this witness as an expert witness in medical examining.
I object.
What's your objection?
They did not state the years in which you graduated school. They also did not state the medical examiner, you have to be certified forensic pathologist. There was no statement of that in her statement, not in one that we have received.
Very
Your
good.
Honor, Your Honor,
Overruled.
Your Honor, may I conclude?
You've already won.
And would it be in your favor today if you had your post-mortem examination papers in front of you?
Yes, please.
Your Honor, may I approach your witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize these documents?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you recognize that these are yours?
Is there a number on that? Exhibit number in?
No, sir.
That is the procedure that we use at the medical exam. That's the format we use. That has my signature and my name.
And they have not been altered in any way?
No.
And during your examination, did you find anything in Michael Brown's clothing?
No, just besides the defects of the gunshot wounds.
How many gunshot wounds were there?
There were 6 entrance wounds, 3 exit wounds, and 2 tangible wounds, which tangible wounds are just basically graze wounds.
Can you please explain what a graze wound is?
It doesn't go through bone, or it can go through the tissue, but it really doesn't go through the bone. So it's like a graze.
And could you maybe diagram what you saw with the gunshot wounds on the body?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may my witness approach the whiteboard?
Sure.
Do you wanna? Can I go ahead and draw?
I'm not sure.
Ma'am.
Will you please show to the jury and to the court what you saw with the wounds on the body, please?
Okay. So this is not gonna be drawn to scale. So this is his right side. I'm not gonna show this side because most of the gunshot wounds were on this right arm and on this part of his chest. Again, it's not drawn to scale. He had one gunshot wound to the vertex of the scalp, which was an interest wound. That was the, for autopsy procedures, I start from the head to the feet. So that's why they're not in order of which they were shot, but they're in order as I go from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet. So that was the first shot. The second shot was in his right eye. It was a little bit up, but because of gunshot wounds, they lacerated the eye, so right here. That was the second shot. This shot exited here. And there was another gunshot wound here. Let's see. This one is in the right jaw, which was the exit wound of the second shot. This is in the upper right chest, which is the fourth, and it was an entrance wound. Then the fifth wound shot was over here, and the lateral right chest. Yes. There was another gun shoot to the arm, which was number 6. This one exited in the same place. They were only like 1 centimeter apart, so it will be almost here. And that was number 7, which was the exit one of number 6. Number 8 was also in the right arm. And the gunshot wound for that one was also near it, because this one was at 16 centimeters and the other one was at 15. The tangible wound that I mentioned, the face wound, there was one in the right bicep. Here. That was number 10. And then the one in his thumb that was over here. That was another grace wound. So that would be number 11.
And Ms. Wilson, would you consider that these wounds were in short distance?
No, there was no present of suit or stippling. Suit basically shows that it was at close range, and there was no presence of it in either of the wounds.
And can you describe to the court what stippling is?
Stippling happens when the force of them causes little specks, like little specks around the wound, and that means it was in short distance.
So would you say that Michael Brown was maybe defending himself?
Objection.
Sustained. You may rephrase that question.
Ms. Wilson, according to the wounds, would you say that Michael Brown had his hands in the air at any point in time?
Most of the time in defense wound, when a person does raise their hands up,
they do tend to have injuries on their arms. So because most injuries were on their arms, I would say yes.
And you did do a toxicology test on Michael Brown, correct?
Correct.
Was there THC present?
There was.
Does THC normally make a person react violently?
According to my experience, no. THC is known to be a depressant and not a stimulant, which stimulant will make you more aggressive and more violent.
Was there anything on Michael Brown's hands to maybe make you think that he was hitting someone?
No, there was no abrasion or anything on his hands or knuckles.
Okay. Was there any bruising?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Witness.
Oh, you can sit down, you don't need to. In your report, does it include the DNA analysis?
I can't hear you.
In your report that you have with you, does it include the DNA analysis?
Of the items that I received?
Yeah.
No.
Sure. But. Okay. Well, I'm gonna ask you about that. You said that the way that the gunshot wounds enters and exits, it could possibly show that he had his hands up, correct?
Correct, but they could be positioned anyway. They did enter this way, so his hand could have been down here, up here, up here. I'm only saying that because there looked like defensive wounds that a person would have whenever they do raise their hand.
But you can't guarantee that his hands were up based on your medical knowledge.
No, that's up to reconstruction of the detective.
And in reference to the toxicology report, you said that there were high levels of THC, various cannabinoids found in his blood and urine, correct?
There was 2 types of THC presence.
Yeah, and do you have the toxicology report up with you? Where it has the urine test, it shows that both the different types of delta-9 THC were both at high levels.
They were greater than 25 nanograms.
Correct, and then the second one was greater than 150 nanograms.
Correct.
And that test has a cutoff of 50. Anything above 50 is high, correct?
Correct.
And you say that THC is a depressant, correct?
Correct.
But as a doctor, you know that people react differently to medications, different substances, correct?
Correct.
So while there may be people who have depressing symptoms when they use THC, people can also have a different effect, and it could hype them up, make them aggressive, make them violent, correct? So it's possible that the amount of THC in Michael Brown's system made him react aggressively to Darren Wilson's commands in question, correct?
I wouldn't know, I wasn't there.
But based off of your medical knowledge, you can say that there's no guarantee that he had a depressing effect. He could have been acting out aggressively in reaction to the marijuana, correct?
Based on my knowledge, I know that marijuana isn't a stimulant.
But everyone reacts differently to medicine, correct? So he could have had an aggressive reaction.
Objection. It's speculative.
You want to make it 3-part harmony?
Yeah.
Overruled. Let's move on though.
No further.
Anything else?
Ms. Wilson, you're a medical examiner, so you have the medical experiences, and you've done studies. Would you say that you could determine the time of bruising, and there was bruising on Michael Brown's hands?
No, man. Everybody bruises differently. I could fall right now, and it could either be green, yellow, so you really can't time it. Everybody bruises differently. Some bruise first purple and then pink, so you really can't tell time with bruising.
No further questions.
People in the hallway keep it quiet. Anything else?
No further questions.
I got lots of questions. Dr. Wilson, is that correct?
Yes.
How many bullet holes did you number up there?
The last one's 11.
11.
Yeah.
Does the number that you assigned to the hole have anything to do with the order in which the holes were inflicted?
No, no, all my autopsies are starting from the head all the way to the feet. So just 1 through 10 as I go down the body.
How many of the 11 holes are entrance wounds, if you can tell?
6,
How many are exit wounds?
3.
Do you have any opinion about how many bullets made the 6 entrance wounds?
Could you explain your question?
Well, is it possible for an entrance wound in the hand to also be an entrance wound in the body from the same bullet?
It could.
Okay. Any questions based on the questions that the court asked from the state,
No, Your Honor.
from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
I got most of the gold out there for you. Thank you, ma'am. You can now. All right, next witness.
The state race, Your Honor.
All right.
I'm the secretary for the church that I work at.
Have you ever had any previous encounters with the officers of the Ethiopian Police Department?
Yes, I have.
Can you elaborate?
I was arrested for a crime of passion. The man that I loved and wanted to be with for the rest of my life cheated on me with some girl, and I found them at the mall together. I got in my car as quickly as possible, and I tried to leave. But as soon as I was flooring my car, I ran into the woman. Honestly, I meant to hit both of them. But unfortunately, he got away. She could not walk for anything in the heels that she was trying to look cute in. I was charged with vehicular manslaughter and was sentenced to 15 years, but I did get out on probation after 5 years.
With a felony record, why would you willingly make a statement about a crime?
I believe it's the right thing to do. My past doesn't really have any effect on this case, so why not?
Can you explain to the court about what you witnessed on August 9, 2014?
Yes. Me and my now husband were on our way to pick up a friend in the same apartment complex that the event occurred. Before we turned the corner, we heard a few gunshots, and as we were nearing the corner, we saw the police officer and a tall, large African-American male standing in the middle of the street. The man looked like he was pointing at the officer with what looked like a gun to me, and they seemed like they were in a pretty heated argument. I heard one more shot go off, and it looked like the man started to limp off. A few seconds later, I recall the man charging back at the police officer, and that's when I heard a few more shots, and next thing you know, the man was laying on the ground.
How do you know what you heard before you turned the corner and were gunshots?
I'm from a pretty rough neighborhood, so I knew what they were when they occurred.
To reiterate, you said you saw what looked like to you to be a gun in the hands of Michael Brown.
Yes.
What was Michael Brown's demeanor towards Officer Wilson?
He was very aggressive. He was very aggressive. He didn't look like he wanted to back down. He looked like he was trying to win whatever argument that they happened to be in.
At any time were Michael Brown's hands up?
No, they were down by his side the whole time.
Did you witness the defendant shoot at the victim, Michael Brown, on August 9, 2014?
I did.
Did you see the victim have a weapon while you witnessed the shooting?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize this document?
No,
This is your eyewitness statement that you gave to the police.
I have a different statement.
We don't have this statement. Yes, this is the one.
Yes, the same.
The revised one?
Do you recognize this document?
I was with my husband. That says with my wife.
Yeah, I know she's right here, but everybody's got to hear you.
It says I was with my husband. I mean, with my wife. I was with my husband, so that's not the correct statement.
The defense did not give us the correct statement.
That should have been brought up earlier, so we can move on.
Bazinga.
Were you in a moving vehicle while you witnessed the shooting?
For part of it, yes.
So, how far away from the shooting were you in this vehicle?
Maybe a couple yards, not very far.
How fast was the vehicle moving?
It was going the standard speed limit, about 35, 45, but we had to come to a stop because they were standing in the street.
So, were you in a residential area?
Yes,
And in a residential area, generally the miles per hour is 35, correct?
yes.
So were you speeding? So you said you were going 35, 45 miles per hour?
35, 40 is standard speed.
You said 45.
It could have been 45,
So could you have been speeding?
possibly, but I still stopped my car.
Were you driving?
No, my husband was. I was in the passenger seat.
So it could have been possible you were moving a little too fast and you perhaps saw something you didn't actually see.
Objection.
Overruled.
No,
So you can see, accurately identify something while moving at 45 miles per hour.
I didn't say we were moving at approximately 45 miles per hour. I said there was a variance.
So did you turn onto the side street after you saw this incident?
We
Because
stopped.
You couldn't obviously drive on.
Yes.
shooting.
We stopped.
So, as you were witnessing this incident, you saw the victim get shot, correct?
Yes.
And after the victim was shot, what did he do?
What did he do?
Yes, the victim.
The first time or the second time he was shot?
After all the shots were done.
He was on the floor.
So, did you see the police officer shoot him?
Yes.
So, the defendant shot the victim.
Yes.
So, do you understand the voluntary manslaughter charge?
Yes.
Could you repeat it to me?
I mean, to kill somebody.
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant.
Sustained.
Did you see the defendant kill Michael Brown?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Tell me your name.
I'm Blake Carter.
Everybody through with this witness? Was it a residential district or was it a neighborhood?
It was the same apartment complex. I lived in.
Thank you, come down.
I'm sorry, can you take the stand again? I have a couple of questions.
Court recognizes Counsel Bonnie.
You said you saw Michael Brown get shot.
Yes.
When Michael Brown got shot and you were in your car, was he coming towards the police officer?
Yes.
How far was he, in your estimate, from the police officer?
Maybe about a few feet.
So a few feet. So could you come and get off the witness stand for me and tell me, in your estimate, where, if I'm Officer Darren Wilson, where Michael Brown would be standing? How
Objection,
close?
speculative.
Overruled. She's an eyewitness.
Were his hands up?
No, they were by the side.
They were by his side. Could you hear anything that Officer Wilson said?
No, I could not hear their conversation.
And you couldn't hear anything from Officer Brown, or Michael Brown? So they were this distant, and was it like this for the first shot?
No, it was down towards his
And where was the second shot?
up towards his upper body.
Did you see any of the shooting after that?
No.
But you said you saw a gun in Michael Brown's hand.
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
And you're pretty sure in your estimate they were this close?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now you may be seated.
Are you next witness?
The defense would like to call Jordan Keller to the stand.
Place your left hand on the right hand, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated.
Can you state your name for the court?
Jordan Keller.
How old are you, Mr. Keller?
I'm 27 years old
Where do you work?
at Ferguson Constructions.
How long have you been with this company?
For about 5 years.
Can you tell the courts why you were on Canfield Drive and being questioned?
I was doing building reconstructions for my company.
Is it true that you witnessed the entire event in question?
Yes, it is.
Can you give us a recollection of the events that occurred on August 9th, 2014?
Well, while I was doing building reconstructions for my company, I happened to look over and see the officer and Mr. Brown get into an altercation. While I saw that, I saw Mr. Brown going towards the officer and forcing his way into the officer's car. And when I was looking at that, I can clearly see how Mr. Brown was overpowering the officer in the car, forcing himself on the officer. And after that, after about 10 seconds or so, I heard a couple gunshots. So after hearing the gunshots, Mr. Brown started running away from the car. After that, it took about 6 seconds or so for the officer to get himself together and start going after Mr. Brown. After that, when they were chasing after Mr. Brown, when the officer was chasing after Mr. Brown stopped. After doing about some type of jerky motion and he reached to his pants pockets trying to do something, he started charging at the officer. Then the officer opened fire, trying to stop Mr. Brown from coming towards him because he felt so threatened by how he was overpowered in the car. Then Mr. Brown stopped after a couple shots. Then he started going again towards the officer. The officer began opening fire again. After that, the officer stopped firing after Mr. Brown stopped going towards the officer.
Can you reiterate the description of Mr. Brown for the court?
He was a tall and stocky man. He looked sort of like Michael Orr, you know. Like I'm a big guy, but he was a big guy, like an All-American D tackle or something like that. You know.
Can you tell what Mr. Brown was wearing that day?
He was wearing a tan shorts, black and yellow socks, and a red hat.
Can you reiterate for the courts the motion that Mr. Brown made while coming towards the officer?
He made a jerky motion, like he was trying to like get himself together, or if he was like reaching towards his pants pocket trying to do something before he charged towards the officer.
Can you can you come forward and show us the motion that you saw Mr. Brown make?
Well, after he stopped, he sort of did something like this, getting down, doing something like that to charge towards him.
Okay. You said that Mr. Brown was charging towards the officer, correct?
Yes.
Was Mr. Brown's hand up during any point?
His hands were towards his pockets, like he was reaching for something like that until he started charging.
Can you reiterate the extent in which Officer Wilson shot at Mr. Brown?
He shot because like I said before, in my opinion, I feel like he was threatened by Mr. Brown. So
Objection.
What's your
Speculation.
What's your objection?
Speculation.
What's your response?
He's talking about how his opinion of the situation, not saying that Officer Brown told him himself, or that's what came out of his mouth. He's showing his opinion of the situation.
Perhaps he's sharing his observations of present sense impression.
Yes.
Over. Go ahead.
Can you give us a showing of how Mr. Brown was charging at the officer?
He was charging a full sprint towards the officer. After he did his jerk motion, he started running as fast as he could towards the officer.
No further questions.
He's got a further question. Can you explain about what you saw, how Michael Brown was acting when Officer Darren Wilson was in the car?
He was acting real aggressive, like he was overpowering himself to get into the car, to do whatever he could to get towards the officer, and he was violently attacking him.
Was the officer sitting in the officer driver's side?
Yeah.
And where was Michael Brown in regards to that?
He was forcing himself inside of the car.
Did you see what he was doing to Officer Wilson when he was forcing himself into the car?
You said, I'm sorry?
Did you see what Michael Brown was doing, if anything, to Officer Wilson?
I saw himself forcing himself into the car, overpowering the officer.
Can you demonstrate? If the table was the window of the car and you were going into it,
He was forcing himself in on the officer, trying to be as physical as he can, but like I said before, he was a big guy. So he was forcing himself, overpowering the officer inside.
can you face the jury and do that with the other table so they can see it, please?
This is the car, he was overpowering the officer, forcing himself onto the officer inside the car.
So he was in the window, open window of the officer's car, overpowering the officer.
You'll see overpowering the officer.
And then after he did that, what did Michael Brown do?
I'm sorry?
After he overpowered the officer, can you tell us what happened then?
Well, while he was overpowering the officer, I heard gunshots, and then after the gunshots, he began to run away.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Take this out.
Any cross?
Where were you located when you witnessed this incident? In relation to this incident?
I'm sorry?
Where were you located in relation to this incident?
I was doing my building renovations. I was doing the building renovations for my company.
But where were you? If this incident, say it was just on this ground, where were you? Were you this or left or right? Did you see it from the back or the front?
I saw it from the, if this is the angle right here, I saw it directly from the angle.
Were there any obstacles to block your view when you witnessed this incident? on your
No.
construction site?
No, the only obstacle that stopped my view was after the whole altercation happened, when the Monte Carlo pulled up afterwards, after the whole incident happened.
So did you witness the defendant shoot at the victim, Michael Brown, on August 9th, 2014?
I'm sorry?
Did you witness the defendant shoot at the victim, Michael Brown, on August 9th, 2014?
Yes, I saw him shoot at the officer. I saw him shoot at Mr. Brown in an attempt to stop Mr. Brown from charging towards him, because he felt so, in my opinion, he felt so overpowered that he had to, that was the only way he can stop.
Stay.
So after Michael Brown,
And
May we strike this from record, please?
be stricken.
And can we instruct the jury to,
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, disregard any of the witnesses' statements after the statement about he shot the victim. Any statements about any motivation are not relevant to this trial. All right, continue.
so after Michael Brown ran away from a police vehicle, did the defendant get out of his vehicle and pursue Michael Brown?
The officer?
Yes.
Yes, he did, after about 6 seconds or so.
Did you see Michael Brown have a weapon at this time?
No, I couldn't. All I saw was Michael Brown running away.
When the defendant exited his vehicle, did he have a weapon drawn?
No, he got out his car chasing after the suspect.
So when Michael Brown stopped running away, you said in your statement he was in movement and he demonstrated it for us.
Yes.
At this point in time, did he have a weapon in his hand, Michael Brown?
When he was doing his jerking motion, he was doing something, trying to go for his pants. Whether pulling up his pants or going for a weapon, he was doing something in an attempt to.
After he finished the motion, did you see a weapon in his hand?
No, because he started charging fully after he did his motion. He started charging towards the officer.
At any time while you witnessed this incident, was Michael Brown ever armed?
I'm sorry?
At any time during this incident, was Michael Brown ever armed?
No, I did not see him with a weapon in his hand.
And after Michael Brown came at the defendant, did the defendant open fire on Michael Brown?
Yes.
So you witnessed the defendant open fire on an unarmed man.
I witnessed the defendant open fire on a man that he felt.
objection? Your objection.
Just answer the question, yes or no, then you can explain.
Yes, he did.
And after the defendant opened fire on Michael Brown, he collapsed and fell to the ground. Michael Brown did.
All I saw was after the officer opened fire on Mr. Brown, I saw him stop moving.
And where was Michael Brown after he stopped moving?
Still standing up from my visual, from what I could see.
Do you understand the voluntary manslaughter charge?
Yes.
Objection, relevant.
Overruled as to that one question, you can answer yes or no.
Yes.
Did the defendant kill Michael Brown?
No, not from what I seen.
Was Michael Brown ever moving after the defendant shot him?
After he was shot,
Yes.
yes, he was moving.
You said earlier, you stated after he was shot, he stopped moving, he was no longer moving.
After the officer opened fire on Mr. Brown, he was moving until after the officer opened fire on Mr. Brown, he continued moving until he stopped. Once he stopped, the officer stopped firing his gun. And then when he started moving again towards the officer, he opened fire again, then stopped.
So afterwards, did you ever see Michael Brown moving?
No, because the Monte Carlo pulled in front of my visual after that.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
If you really think you need to.
Could you perhaps read this to yourself for me?
Okay.
Does this aid your recollection of what happened on August 9th, 2014?
You said, does it aid my recollection?
Yes.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, this has not been identified as to what she's asking him to read or what his recollection is of what she's asking him to read. We don't know what it is.
Y'all want to see it?
And he hasn't identified it either. Nor have they stated to the
She
record.
did
what
state
it
it
is.
to the defense.
She didn't state it to the
attorneys.
record.
She didn't state it for the record or to the court.
Madam, read this line. Page 12. Your Honor, I would like to set this to the court.
Yeah, what is it?
It is Florida Colors, police interview of the incident.
So you'd like to approach the witness and have them read that sentence?
Yes. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you read from this sentence to this sentence out loud?
Do you know what it is, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, what is it?
It's my conversation on my interview with the detective.
Would you read the sentence that she asked you to?
What sentence is it?
From here to this sentence down here.
This sentence right here?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. It says,
No,
Mr.
no, just read it to yourself.
Okay.
So did Michael Brown collapse in the street?
Does that refresh your recollection as to what happened?
Yes.
Go ahead. You can ask that question.
So did Michael Brown collapse in the street?
Yes, from my knowledge, once the Monte Carlo pulled up, when my adrenaline was pumping when I was talking to the detective, he might have collapsed in the street, but like I said before, afterwards,
Objection.
What's your objection?
Narrative answer. It was a yes or no question.
Mrs. Cross. And what do y'all say? Don't know, huh? I don't know either. You know what they teach judges to do when we don't know? Overruled. Remember the question? Me neither.
Did Michael Brown collapse in the street?
did he collapse in the street?
Yes.
Yes.
Did the defendant kill Michael Brown?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Took a long time to get there. You got a question? I got one question. How far was your location, all of this stuff going on?
It was about, it was about a field between us, but not
It's what?
about a field.
About a field? A football field?
No, not a football field.
A baseball field?
No more than about 35.
No more than 35 yards away.
Yes.
So about a third of a football field away. How long is a football field?
20 yards.
120 yards, that's exactly right. You can come down. Okay, call your next witness.
The defense calls Lieutenant Daniel Dyer to stand.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes. You may be seated.
Tell me this witness's name again.
Daniel Dyer.
Lieutenant Dan.
Can you state your name for the jury?
Lieutenant Daniel Geyer.
What is your current occupation?
I'm a lieutenant with the Utopia Police Department.
How long have you been in your position?
2 years.
Where did you work before?
It was 3 years as a sergeant in the patrol division.
Is Officer Wilson in the span of your control?
Yes.
Have you ever had any reported issues with Darren Wilson?
Never.
How would you describe Officer Wilson's work ethic?
His work ethic. He's a hard worker. He's the first to pick up a new shift or an extra shift for another officer, and he believes in community outreach throughout the police department.
What kind of training did Officer Wilson receive in the academy?
Basic law enforcement training, annual training, and any necessary training throughout the year that's mandated.
Did Officer Wilson ever take any type of race diversity training?
Yes, that's part of annual training.
What time were you notified of the shooting?
Approximately 12:15.
What time did you arrive?
Approximately 12:45.
Was Officer Wilson at the scene when you arrived?
No, a large crowd had formed and he had to be escorted off the premises.
Was emergency medical services on scene?
Not when I arrived.
At what point was the body touched?
The body was originally touched by EMS to discover a pulse. After that, they said it did not need to be touched any further and covered with a blanket. After that, a sergeant and I covered with another blanket because Mr. Brown was too large for just one blanket.
Did you play any other role at the scene?
No.
What time did you leave the scene?
Approximately 2 o'clock.
Were the detectives on scene before you left?
Yes.
Nothing further.
I have a question. Is Officer Wilson, in your opinion, a racist individual?
No.
Has he ever given you the opinion that he was?
What's your objection?
Speculation.
How do you respond to their objection?
It goes to some of the theories that Officer Brown, according to the prosecution, shot and killed
Objection,
him.
she's not counsel for the defense.
All right.
As Judge Emmons will tell
We're
you,
gonna send the jury out.
I'm the greater.
I know, and
Right.
you know I love you.
What did I tell you?
That's a real gutsy move. I got a feeling you're gonna be able to make that same mistake next year when you retake this course.
This is
All right.
also an educational opportunity
Yeah, that's
for
what we're
everybody
trying
in
to
this room.
And I agree.
So
But-
therefore, you're gonna stop while you're ahead
Yeah.
and let me continue, because this is the crux that you guys are gonna be arguing anyway. And these are questions that, wouldn't you guys wanna know this?
Yes.
If you were in the jury box, they can't ask questions. It's the job of the attorneys to do that, and they're not asking it. And one of my jobs as a professor is to teach you, so that you know these questions should be asked, can be asked. Is it a good objection? Excellent objection. I am asking for speculation. But I asked it to challenge you guys, and you picked up on it. So good objection, keep going.
And I don't want you to think for a second that I would conduct this trial the way I've conducted this trial, that this
Yeah.
was real. I've added a little humor. I've also added some teaching points in here too. So this is all about y'all learning. All right. Excellent objections is sustained.
No more further questions?
What do you want to do?
But the mom in her testimony accused him of racially profiling her son and shooting in the beginning, so it's a,
And you did not do a cross-examination of the mother?
Which was a great idea. That was excellent, not cross-examining the mother. Okay, so you take all of this, their objection to this, the mother's testimony, and you weave that into your closing. All right, thank you, you can come down. Call your next witness.
Yeah, you're right, you didn't.
Did they get to cross?
Are we running out of time? Oh, okay, come on back.
He's like, man, I'm listening.
I thought the teacher ruled that we were done with this one.
We're done.
All right, go ahead.
Was the defendant Darren Wilson an officer in the span of your control on August 9th, 2014?
Excuse me?
Was the defendant Darren Wilson an officer in the span of your control on August 9th, 2014?
objection, asked and answered.
This is her first question.
But she already answered that question. in
Yeah,
the
but you
direct-
ask it. Remember when I came out? Remember, it's in the jury out. Remember when I came out and called y'all? And I promised you. No, I'm just kidding. I promised you that somebody would say, objection, ask and answer. Just because you ask a question doesn't prohibit them from asking. And I told y'all that was an improper, this is the second time it's happened. Okay, bring the jury back in. All right, objection overruled. Go ahead and ask the question again.
Was the defendant Darren Wilson an officer in the span of your control on August 9th, 2014?
Yes.
Did you speak with the defendant at the crime scene?
No.
Did you instruct the defendant to return to the Utopia Police Department shortly after the time of the crime?
I personally did not.
Did you instruct or escort the defendant to the hospital?
No.
Did you follow up with the defendant at any time after the crime had occurred on August 9th, 2014?
That would be a conflict of interest.
Did you follow up with the defendant in the 24 hours following the crime scene?
Conflict of interest again.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, good cross. That's short. Anything else? Ms. Roll. All right, call your next one.
The defense calls Tory Jenkins to the stand.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You may be seated.
Can you please state your name for the court?
Tori Jenkins,
And where do you reside?
Utopia, North Carolina.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a physician's assistant.
And where did you get your formal education?
I received my bachelor's in biology from Methodist University in 2005 and my master's of physician's assistant studies from Methodist University in 2007.
And where do you currently work?
I currently work at Northwest Healthcare and Christian Hospital.
And how long have you worked there?
2.5 years.
And where did you work prior?
Caper Valley Hospital.
How long did you work there?
4.5 years.
So how many years have you been a PA?
7 years.
And how many patients do you treat on a daily basis?
10 to 15.
And have you had any previous experience dealing with police coming in with injuries?
Yes, they usually come in with minor injuries once or twice a month.
I move to ensure the witness as an expert witness,
In what field?
as a physician assistant.
What says the state?
No objection.
I would have testified without objection.
Were you working on August 9, 2014?
Yes,
Do you recall treating a patient by the name of Darren Wilson?
yes.
Can you tell me about that?
He came in with 2 detectives and his supervisor, and there was a complaint about him being punched in the jaw twice, but while sustaining a suspect or detaining a suspect, and there was another complaint that his right jaw, being punched in his right jaw, and there was a little bit of redness.
And did you specifically ask him any questions regarding how he sustained those injuries?
Yes,
Is that part of protocol?
yes,
Did you do a report on the day that Darren Wilson came in?
yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
You recognize this document?
Yes,
And what is this document?
it is my report of when he came in.
And how do you know that this is your report?
I remember doing it.
All right, you gotta speak up.
I remember, writing it and it shows my examination.
And would having this age in your testimony today?
Yes.
Your Honor, I need to get this.
I can't hear, I know, nobody else can hear you.
You don't need to do anything, she just needs to.
Okay, cool, thank you. Alright. And can you read where it lists his injuries on your report?
Yes.
Can you read it out loud?
The patient described being punched in the right jaw twice while trying to detain a suspect. There's redness in the beginning stages of bruising on the right jaw. There were faint scratch marks present on the back of the patient's neck, looked to be superficial.
Alright. And did the injuries you observed match the story that Wilson told you how he sustained those injuries?
Yes.
Right. And how are you sure that the bruising that you saw on his jaw was in the beginning stages?
The bruising on his jaw was consistent, and it showed the bruising on the station, or it showed the beginning stages of bruising, and also the scratch marks on his back of his neck were lightly pink or little pink, so it showed that they were not scabbing or any old indications.
And prior to Mr. Wilson coming in, were you aware of the situation that had occurred?
No.
And that day, you said that he was complaining of being in pain. Did you prescribe him any medication?
Yes.
What did you prescribe him?
Naproxen.
And within your scope of work, are you able to prescribe medication?
Yes.
Can you describe why you prescribed him naproxen?
I prescribed it for him for his inflammation and his pain.
And can you describe Darren Wilson's demeanor when he was in your care?
He was very calm, no distress, slightly anxious, but nothing out of the ordinary.
And prior to August 9th, had you had any contact to Darren Wilson?
No.
And was there anyone else in the department that was in contact with him that day?
Yes.
Can you tell us who those people were?
The x-ray tech who took his examinations and also registration when he came in.
No further questions.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize this report?
Yes.
Can you tell us how you recognize this report when there's no signature on it nor your name or handwriting, as federal regulation requires for medical reports?
Out of the scope of the trial materials, Your Honor.
This is that.
How can you tell when bruises are in the beginning stages?
So when there's bruising, you can tell by when there's the swelling or the redness are showing.
That's exactly how bruises appear at all points in time. So in your experience, would bruises such as these supposedly on Darren Wilson's face cause injuries to the hands of the person who hit him as well?
I do not know.
No further questions.
When did you see all of this?
I saw this August 9th, 2014.
What time?
I do not recall.
There's no time on the reports either.
Okay, anybody else want to ask any questions of this witness? Everybody through with her? Ma'am, you come down.
I'm not. Could you please sit down, ma'am? I have a question. When Darren Wilson was brought in, did he tell you he was brought in immediately after an altercation he had been in?
No. Well, he said that he was trying to sustain a suspect or detain a suspect.
So he was brought in pretty quickly after the supposed altercation, would you say within an hour or two?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. No further questions.
I'm sure y'all got some crossed it out.
How do you know it was within an hour or two?
Because of the bruising.
But we already discussed that you can't tell within 2 hours, correct?
I don't recall.
No further questions.
All right, maybe we come down. All right, next witness.
The defense would like to call Darren Wilson to the stand.
Place your right hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Can you say your name for the courts?
Darren Wilson.
What is your occupation, Ms. Wilson?
I'm a police officer with the Utopia Police Department.
How long have you been with the Utopia Police Department?
3 years.
Can you give the court your educational background?
I was a double major in applied forensic science and justice studies at Methodist University.
Have you had any specialized training?
Yes, I've been to basic law enforcement training, and we have yearly department training for each specific department. So,
Have you had any specialized training in hostile situations?
yes, it's part of our annual training.
Can you tell the courts what happened on August 9th, 2014?
So I was leaving a call about a sick case. Person was sick, so I came to help them. And as I got back in my car, I got a phone call about a stealing in progress at the Ferguson Market. And I got a description of a black male in a black t-shirt and tan shorts. And so as I was driving towards the market, I saw two gentlemen walking in the middle of the street. And there were cars that were driving by and trying to avoid them. So I rolled down my window and came up to talk to them. And I asked them, why are they walking in the middle of the street? And the first gentleman said that they were just walking to their apartment complex, and he pointed just behind me. And so I said, okay, why don't you just use a sidewalk? And the second gentleman said, fuck what you gotta say. And he was acting extremely hostile with me, and I just came to talk to him. And they continued walking down the street and just walked right by me. So I called for an extra patrol car to come assist me, and I put the car in reverse and went back to talk to him again. And as I came back, I was gonna get out and talk to him, and the second gentleman had come and put his body on the door, so I was not able to open it. And then he began beating me and punching me and hitting me. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he's trying to do whatever he can to kill me. He clearly has no regard for the law or any authority that I have. And as I'm going through a mental checklist to try and figure out what's the best way to get out of the situation, I have mace, but as close to the distance as we are as him being inside my vehicle, I knew that it would disable both of us. I had a baton with me, but I was not able to extend it because I'd have to lean over and extend it, and it'd give up more of my car for him to have a better position to hit me. And I also had a flashlight in my bag, but I also have to reach across to the passenger seat where my bag was located and grab the flashlight, and I still did not want to give up any more of my car. So the only thing I had left was a gun. So I pulled the gun out and started to point it towards him, and before I could, he grabbed the gun from the top and started pointing it into my hip. At that point, I'm thinking, he's gonna shoot me. He has his finger around my finger around the trigger, and all I could think about was him trying to shoot me. And I also, as he's pointing the gun towards me, he's continuing hitting me in the face, and I'm like pulling up my left arm to try and block it while I have the gun in my hand. And so he continues hitting me, and finally I drop my hand. I lock my left elbow into the back of the seat and push up with both hands to free the gun from my hip that he's pointing at. And so I get the gun free from my hand, and I go to point it towards him and pull the trigger, but nothing happens. I see that his hand is on top of the gun, and I believe the gun was out of battery. So I pointed towards him, pulled the trigger, nothing happened. I pulled the trigger a couple more times, nothing happened. And finally the gun went off. When it did, glass shattered everywhere, blood went flying, and Michael Brown kind of stumbled back and like paused for a second, realizing the fact he was shot. After a couple seconds, he came back and started coming in, beating me, hitting me, scratching me, and I continued to have my hand up to try and block his attack. And finally, I used my arm to block again, and I pulled out the gun and just started fired another shot towards his general direction because I could not see him from blocking. And I didn't hear anything, so I dropped my arm to see what happened, and I see him running away from me. I get out of the car, I call for backup, and the shots were fired, and for any officers to come assist me. So I get out of the car, I yell to stop, get on the ground, and he will not. He's continued running backwards. So I started to chase him. He stops and turns around, and I continue to command him to stop and get on the ground. But he turns around, does kind of like makes like a grunting sound, and does basically like a jump and starts to get like a head start and start running as fast as he can at me. I continue to tell him to stop, but he will not. I grabbed the gun, started shooting, and tried to disable him. I hit him several times, and he did not go down. I was backing up, trying to get further distance between me and him, and he would not slow down. And finally, my last shot hit him in the head, and he collapsed immediately. And I called for backup, and about 10 seconds or so, 2 marked cars arrived.
Can you reiterate for the courts where Michael Brown was hitting you?
He was coming in and punching me. He had a couple glancing blows on both sides of my jaw, and he got several clean shots on the right side of my jaw.
You stated earlier that your weapon was on a battery. Can you explain that?
Yes, so the slide, when it comes back to pull the trigger, has to be back a certain distance. And the fact that Michael Brown's hand was on top of the gun, it was not able to slide back. And he eventually lost control of the gun, and it was able to slide back. So I was able to pull the trigger, and the shot was fired.
Can you reiterate for the courts how you were able to get out of the car?
After the first shot was fired, he backed up and took a couple seconds and regathered himself and came back. And he started hitting me, and then he started running away once I pulled out the gun, or pointed the gun the second time.
How many times did you tell Michael Brown to stop while he was running with you?
Several. I'm not quite sure how many, as much as my adrenaline was pumping, but I know I said multiple times for him to stop.
Could you come off the jury, off the witness stand, and show for the jury how Mr. Brown was leaning in your car, attacking you?
So, as we used before, if this is the open window, he was kind of leaning in and grabbing me and started like punching me with his left hand. He originally had the cigarillos that were reported stolen from the market in his hand. He passed it off to the person that was with him and began coming back in and beating me, punching me, right as he was leaning in the window.
Can you show the jury and the courts the motion that Michael Brown made as he would, before he ran toward you?
Yes, so if I was standing back there, this is Michael Brown. He was running away and kind of stopped and kind of running and then just kind of went like this and started running full speed at me.
How far would you say Mr. Brown was away from you when you mentioned your last shot?
A couple feet, 3 or 4, it was fairly close.
And what was going through your head while Michael Brown was charging you?
Basically just coming to kill me. He looked extremely angry, and as he came, he had no intent of slowing down.
Objection. Speculation.
What's your objection?
Speculation.
What's your response?
Just recalling the events and how he felt in the situation. It's his personal opinion of what he saw, what he was going through.
Overall.
After the incident, what were your actions?
I was sent in to the department, kind of washed up and got the blood off. I sent in my uniform and a gun, and then I went to the hospital to get medical assistance.
Further questions?
You witness? You witness?
Did you speak with anyone about the situation after it happened?
I spoke with my superior officers and the medical examiner. or
So you never
physicians.
spoke with the detective who interviewed you?
I also spoke with him as well afterwards.
You said that in your interview that you were yelling at the suspects. From your experience, does yelling normally stop the suspect from charging after you? Or does it encourage them because adrenaline?
I mean, people react differently. As my adrenaline was pumping as well, I was just trying to do whatever I could to try to get him to slow down.
And he walked away to give away the cigarillos that were supposedly stolen, correct?
Yes.
So during that time that he walked away, you didn't have time to grab another weapon?
He did not walk away he took like one step, handed them off, and came back.
So during that time, could you have possibly rolled your window up and waited for backup?
I don't believe so.
So during the time that he was reaching into your car, you never thought to just roll your window up and drive away and wait for backup?
As he was reaching inside and hitting me, there's no way to roll up the window.
And your radio was also on the wrong station, correct?
Yes, it got changed to a different channel in our altercation.
And you never thought to maybe make sure it was on the right station before you called for backup?
I did not realize that it was changed.
Your firearm should be checked annually, correct?
Yes.
So what could have caused it to misfire?
The fact that he was also in control of the gun and had his hands on the moving parts that caused the gun to work.
Was the gun ever pointed towards you?
Yes,
Where was it pointed?
in my hip. Left
And
hip.
you left to rinse off the blood, is that protocol?
Yes.
Is it also protocol to immediately go for gunfire during an altercation?
No, we go through like a mental checklist to diffuse a situation non-lethally first, but the only way that I felt was able to diffuse the situation was lethal fire because no other options were going to be useful.
And Michael Brown stopped, correct?
Stopped.
He stopped hitting you, correct? And you walked
Yes.
away from the vehicle?
Yes.
Did you ever think to wait for backup then before you got out of your vehicle?
I was just trying to diffuse the situation without him escaping.
When you got out of the vehicle, you immediately started shooting, correct?
As I called for backup, I continued to yell at him to stop as he was running away, but he did not. So as soon as I got out, I did not start shooting.
So you shot him 6 times.
I'm not quite sure how many I shot.
You unloaded a magazine, correct?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, according to the evidence that we have, you shot more than once. From my understanding from your statement, you did say it took more than one shot to detain him. But why would you shoot him more than once after he was already on the ground?
He was not on the ground.
You said he was laying on the ground.
After the final shot was fired, he
Would you
collapsed.
say that final shot was the one that killed him?
I can't quite say. I'm not a doctor.
So you shot fire.
Objection.
What's your objection?
Leading.
That's kind of the purpose of cross.
So you shot Michael Brown, correct?
Yes.
And the shots fired are what killed him, correct?
I'm not sure.
Yes
I'm
or
not a
no
doctor.
question? Is it yes or no question?
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
But you shot him, correct?
Yes.
And from your experience, from you being in law enforcement, you've been through BOT and other training, you learned that bullets cause death, correct?
And yes.
So you shot him 6 times.
Yes.
What's your objection?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Hold on. Anything else? No.
Yes, Your Honor, I have a question.
Okay.
Officer Wilson, can you tell me how this incident has impacted your life?
I've lived with this since the incident happened. I still have sometimes nightmares about it. my intention was not to cause him severe harm, and especially not death. I walked up, or drove up to him, and I was extremely calm, and he became agitated with me, and I did what I thought was best to diffuse the situation.
Can I ask some questions? Did you ever turn your patrol car off that night?
Turn it off?
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Thank you. You come down. Any more witnesses? Any, I'm sorry? Fence rest. All right. Any rebuttal witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Any motions? Good, they're all denied anyway. All right, we'll send the jury out and have a charge conference. The jury's out. Anybody want to say anything? Anybody have any special instructions they prepared for me? What should the verdict sheet say?
Your Honor, may I make a closing statement?
Yeah, but we're not to that point yet. What should the verdict sheet say? Guilty of first-degree murder?
Voluntary manslaughter.
Oh, trying to manslaughter case, okay, all right. Just making sure we're still in the same case. Any lessers? Anybody want to argue any lessers? He's charged with involuntary. No? What's he charged with?
Voluntary.
Okay, so a lesser would be involuntary, right? Anybody want to argue that that ought to be included? I guess not. All right, Madam Clerk, if you prepare a verdict form that says guilty of voluntary manslaughter or not guilty. Nobody's asking for involuntary. Okay? All right, then we'll bring the jury back in. All right, bring the jury back in. Deputy? Who's going to go first?
Prosecutor.
Okay. Y'all ready? You need a second.
Can I have just a moment?
Yeah, sure. Y'all, however, cannot have a moment.
All right, Your Honor, her moment's over. It's time to hit the road.
All right, hold on just a second. Let me see. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all the evidence has been presented. It will soon be your duty to decide from this evidence what the true facts of this case are and to render a verdict that reflects that truth. Prior to the instructions of the court, the lawyers will give you their closing statements. Closing statements are not evidence in the case, but it's an attempt by the lawyers to attempt to persuade you to a particular verdict. If during the course of making a final statement, one or more of the attorneys attempts to restate the evidence, and your recollection is different from that of the attorneys, you are to be guided exclusively by your own recollection. Once again, closing statements are not evidence. State may proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Kaylee Heller, and I am a prosecuting attorney for this state. Today we've heard a case of a young man who was shot and killed by an officer during an altercation. We've all had adrenaline pumping through our systems. We all know what that feels like. And in the midst of this altercation that Mike Brown got into with Officer Darren Wilson, he chose to walk away, even through an altercation where, yeah, he had a gun out. And yes, Michael Brown hit an officer in the face. However, he still had the clarity of mind to turn and walk away from the police officer in the depth of that moment. In the depth of that moment, however, the police officer still chose to get out of his car rather than following any other protocol, calling for backup or waiting for backup to arrive, to pull his gun out and proceed to shoot Michael Brown. Not once, not twice, but 6 different times. Because he was shot or hit in the face twice, because Michael Brown supposedly stole 2 cigarillos from a convenience store. 2 cigarillos cost 99 cents. I don't think that's what Michael Brown's life is worth, and neither does his mother. Michael Brown had turned his life around. He was getting ready to go to college. He had become a role model for his neighborhood and his community. He was doing things to turn his life around, and even in the midst of that moment, he still chose the higher path. When he receded from the altercation that he initiated, yes, but he still changed the path that he chose in that moment.
He didn't choose to die. He chose to walk away. And then Officer Darren Wilson chose to shoot him. That makes it voluntary. That makes Michael Brown's life worth 99 cents instead of anything else it might have been worth. I ask that you keep that in mind. I ask that you think about your own children. Think about your 15-year-old, your 18-year-old, your child who just graduated high school, who's getting ready to go off to college and figure out the rest of their world until it was decided that it was worth 99 cents and 2 hits in the face. Thank you.
Okay, what says the defense?
May I proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want to begin by saying thank you for your consideration and your service on this case. I would like to begin by bringing forth an issue that I think needs to be addressed. As humans, it is natural for us to make assumptions about things that we have observed. However, I challenge you to not make assumptions, but instead make clear, concise decisions about the testimony and evidence you have heard today. The evidence and testimony you have heard today is contradictory in itself. The state's witnesses, their testimony is clearly contradictory to each other. Not to mention that Darren Wilson has served his community for 5 years. 5 years he took an oath with the police academy to serve and protect. As I go through the events that occurred on August 9th, I would like you to put yourself in Darren Wilson's shoes. But let us not forget that it was Michael Brown who started the altercation. On August 9th, Darren Wilson was responding to a robbery. And while responding, he passed 2 gentlemen walking in the middle of the street. He asked them politely, after rolling down his window, would you please move to the sidewalk? And instead of just complying with the simple suggestion, Michael Brown decided to throw derogatory language at him. And for a second time, Darren Wilson asked, very politely after regaining his composure, would you please move to the sidewalk, because they were blocking traffic. Now, a simple enough suggestion, but Michael Brown took exception to what Darren Wilson was saying and decided to walk towards his cruiser and enter through the window and begin beating him. Now, Darren Wilson at the time was scared for his life, since he didn't know how to get out of the situation. However, during the altercation, Michael Brown put all of his weight against the vehicle so that Darren Wilson could not exit. Michael Brown was not a small man. He was 6'4" and 298 pounds. He put all of his strength and his entire body against the door, making it impossible for Darren Wilson to exit the vehicle. He also, during the altercation, grabbed for Darren Wilson's sidearm. And at that point, Darren Wilson was trying to make sure that he didn't get shot in the hip. After a while, Michael Brown decided to run off. But Darren Wilson, dazed and confused, looked up and realized that Michael Brown was running off in another direction. Darren Wilson knows, as a police officer, that if an individual physically assaults a police officer, it's a crime. So thus, he was in pursuit of Michael Brown because, as a crime, you have to pursue it as a natural criminal. Now, yelling clearly multiple times, stop, turn around, and put your hands up. Michael Brown did stop. He did turn around. But then he decided to charge Officer Wilson at a full sprint. Darren Wilson made the only choice he could make: defend himself or face another attack from Michael Brown that he might not walk away from, because he was obviously bigger and larger than Officer Wilson. As I previously stated, Darren Wilson has served the community of Utopia for 5 years. He has not wavered one time on his oath he took to serve and protect. Michael Brown was an adult. He knew the difference between right and wrong, and he also knew that he would have to pay the consequences for his actions. Because Michael Brown's attack was so unprovoked, Darren Wilson had to make these decisions in the blink of an eye. He only had a split second. I want you to think about that. In the time it takes you or me to blink our eyes, Darren Wilson had to decide if he was willing to face another attack from a man who was way bigger than he was, or was he going to defend himself the only way he knew how and how he was trained. When you're making your decision today, I hope you put yourself in Darren Wilson's shoes. Because if you vote guilty and you return that verdict, it will systematically change police protocol. It will change how police officers are trained and how they interact with the community. I don't want to live in a society where police officers have to second guess every action that they take.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the occurrences in question made in this legal action are alleged to have occurred on August the 9th, 2014. The defendant is charged with voluntary manslaughter. Under the facts and the evidence in this case and the law, you will be required to return one of the following verdicts: guilty of voluntary manslaughter or not guilty. Voluntary manslaughter is the unlawful killing without malice upon a sudden quarrel or heat of passion. Take it to the jury room. Ladies and gentlemen, when you get to the jury room, your first order of business should be to elect one of your members as your foreperson. Your foreperson should lead you in your deliberations. Once you have reached a unanimous verdict, have your foreperson mark it on the verdict form. Please select that. Have your foreperson mark it on the verdict form, sign and date it. You may not reach a verdict by majority vote. Your verdict must be unanimous. If you have any questions, send me a note. Okay, take it go. All right. Yeah. First of all, I'd like the audience to give these participants and witnesses a hand. Now, I will tell you that at times I thought, damn, this is pretty good. And then at times I went, ooh. Okay? But that's what this is supposed to be. You're not lawyers. Not even law students. Okay? You're taking a class in which you're trying to either find out if this is something you want to do, or you heard that Ms. Vonnegutt's a really great teacher, or a variety of reasons. But once again, the good news and the bad news for me is the same that it's almost every time. Some of you were better than some of the lawyers I see on a daily basis. Now, some of you who did a good job, and some you left a lot of meat on the floor. There was a lot of things a lot of scraps on the floor that should have come out. But we've compressed a homicide trial into 3 hours. You know, none of this is real. We're having to do a lot of things that are unrealistic. So I'm going to give you just a couple comments about your performances. Now, you've got to remember, just like I told you when I came out to talk to you earlier this year, this is my opinion, and opinions are like what? Noses. Everybody's got one, right? All right, opening statement, Beth. Little talk, a little too fast, talked a little too low. You're nervous. This is the first part. I understand that. You ID'd the victim. Very good. Michael Brown. Talked about shooting 6 times. Very good. Never go to college. He wanted to go to college. He had a passion for music. You personalized your victim. Very good. Oh, God, I tried so hard to write neat. All right. You talked about hurt and sorrow and mourning. Very good in your opening statements. And almost everything y'all did was too short. There were a couple things you did that were too long, but almost everything you did was too short. But I know Ms. Vonnegut gives you time limits. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you said that way too many times. They know they're the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. But you defined the crime, which is what, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I didn't read any of these facts. I didn't read this file at all. Usually I will read the file, I'll go over it. But then I know almost as much as you do. What I wanted to do for this trial was to know as little as they do and to see if I could figure it out from what y'all were doing. So I didn't read any of it. Also, I was getting ready for a capital case. And it was way too short. Your opening was way too short. Is it Adron? How'd you say it? Adron. Opening statement, good voice, good pace. You talk about a man this, a man that, a man this. Very good. You're personalizing your defendant. Michael Brown did this, and he did this, and he did this. You're already setting out who, maybe not who the bad guy is in this, but your client is not the bad guy, okay? We're not here solely because of what your client did. We're here because of what this man, this grown man, did on this occasion. You're setting the groundwork. You asked the jurors to put them in the defendant's place, which was good. One thing you did, you put all the burden on him. You said up front he's going to testify, and then you started talking about him. But you really got no other choice. You can't win this case. You can't win a murder case. Almost never win a murder case or a homicide case without the defendant getting on the witness stand. So, and of course, that's part of the course. The defendant's got to testify, and he's going to be your star witness. I don't know what that said. Y'all were listening when I came out and stuff. Oh, okay. From hearing your opening statements, it was obvious to me that y'all were listening when I came out earlier in the year and spoke about opening statements. All right, Leslie McSpeeder? Okay. Your voice was too low, voice cracked though. So once we know who you are, all of this seems right. You sounded extreme, where are you? Oh, okay. You sounded extremely realistic, okay? You charged the jury, and you charged the courtroom with emotion. And you know, if I close my eyes, I can imagine myself in a real trial. I mean, you were very, very good. Beth, she was a good first witness, but you left too much on the floor with her. You should have been a little bit longer, should have gone longer. You needed to do something else with her. I would have had her identify a picture of the body. You know what this is? She'd have really lost it then. You know, but you got to do something more with her other than just say you're a bunch of racists. She's got to have more than that because, and I'll be honest with you, you know, we're all adults. Race cuts both ways, and race is in every case. It doesn't matter what color the people are. I mean, it's in every case these days. So you got to use her for more than just jazzing the jury up, getting them angry. And the picture would have been great. Y'all, great move, no questions. You do not question a grieving mother. You can't question a grieving mother. Very good. Peyton Matthews, okay. Good voice, you were very realistic. You said not sure, you know, had to put my food down, talked about my little sister, you were very real, okay? And I don't mean any disrespect, but is that your real voice? No. All right, I didn't think it was, it'd be all right if it was. Beth, you were too short with her. You should have had her ID that, do you see the man in the courtroom that you saw out there? Show him a picture of the victim. Is this the man that you saw arguing with the man? Is this the man you saw get shot? Cross-examination, great cross, did not see the whole thing, and you got to admit it. You got to admit it. And it was a short cross. Remember, we talked about crosses need to be short. Sawyer, voice was too low, but you were very realistic. You did and sounded like what I've heard in court from a lot of people like that who testified. So you were very realistic. Kaylee?
Yes.
What did the two men look like? That was very good. Emily, Cross, good questions, but not enough. Cross needs to be short, but it was way too short with her. You did get admissions that the witness did not see at all. Okay, and the entire trial is giving you little threads for your closing argument. Remember we talked about that. Quim Johnson, where'd he go? Quinn Johnson. Oh, I don't know. I'd go to sleep too if I were you. Good voice, good demeanor. You looked and sounded very truthful on direct. You looked and sounded very truthful. Great question. After he shot him, he definitely killed him. I think was your answer, right? Madeline, right there. Great questions. You got the facts out. You were a little too short and a little clip. You are the detailed person of the team. You're the focused, detail-oriented person. And you need to do witnesses that you get detailed. The other two, particularly you, are the emotional part of the team. Okay? And it takes that. It takes that. So who made the objection? Okay. The objection, I got great cross. You got the witness. He did not sound as truthful and as sure after you got through with it. He sounded very, very truthful. Looked and sounded truthful on the direct, but you beat him down on cross a little. You're not going to get a witness to say, "Oh my God, I lied." I'm just a liar. You're never going to. Well, almost never. You chip away. You chip away, and you chipped away at that one. Erica Justice. Aaron Justice. Sorry, sorry, Aaron. Voice was too low, but I liked your testimony. The only true story. I came here for the only true story. Kaylee, you need to control your witness a little bit better. You need to talk to him about his voice and his pace. He was going a little too fast. Hands up. You did clarify a lot of what he was doing, and that's very good. Cross-examination, and that was right. Objection, good. Did you object? I could not tell. Oh, somebody object. Who objected? Okay, that was a good objection. I remember that.
Yeah, that's when you and I were going back.
Oh, yeah.
We went back.
You had good questions. Your voice was too low, and it was a great last question. What was your last question to him? I don't remember. Oh yeah, that's when y'all started the
I had the last question.
Okay, you had a very good response to her cross, and then you started going back and forth. And at some point, that jurors go, okay, but it was each of you were continue to make points, and this was a witness which you could do that. He was a good witness for both sides, and these things are designed for that. These mock trials have good and bad things in every witness and good and bad things in every piece of evidence. Ryan Grimmy? Graney, sorry. Great voice, great demeanor. You sounded like you were military, and you sounded like you were a cop. So are you a former military or a former cop?
Former military.
Okay. It came out. You talked like a cop, you sounded like a military guy. You looked at your notes, and basically you kind of took over the presentation. And a good witness can do that, and good lawyers can do that too, but also rein it back in. Let me stop you right there. Let me ask you to back up. Let me ask you a question there. Let the witness go, particularly when you got a professional one, and so you sounded very good. All the things that a real cop or real ID tech would do, and you had a good response on cross. Madeline, you were good at getting the things into evidence. I did not press you on the first piece of evidence that you got in, I think was the diagram maybe. But I did press you a little bit on the pictures, and you knew it, but you still kind of stumbled a little bit through it. Great cross-examination, great clarifying questions, great challenging questions from Mia once again. Detective Lewis. You know, that's a funny first name, Detective. Doesn't even say in here what your first name is. Yeah, okay. Knowledgeable, and you tried to help. You did what a lot of detectives do. I mean, you're a smart cop. You've been this way before. You know how to get the conviction. You're trying to help. You're adding things in. You're sprinkling things in that you really shouldn't, but you're trying to help. You're trying to help your side. So you tried to help your side by going beyond some of the relevant facts, and they didn't object. So you were good. Sounded like a cop. The sick call. Nobody explained the sick call. That was surprising. The attorney, at that point, one of you should have stopped, whoever's directing, or should have, that was Madeline, should have stopped and clarified. I had to do it for you. BLET, I had to do the same on that. Remember, these people don't know what BLET is. And once again, you are very matter of fact. You are a good fact witness, cross-examiner or examiner. But you need to switch to somebody else when the emotion part comes in. Like I would not have liked to have seen you do the mother. You were good with the mother. You talked about the victim, Michael Brown. It's important to get a verdict. Tell him to smoke a cigarette. We'll be with him in a minute. The victim, you talked about the victim, Michael Brown, the victim. Items of evidence. You used good use of terms, a weapon on his body, wounds on the victim's body. You used descriptive words. Remember, I came out there and talked about descriptive words, word pictures, words that evoke emotion. This is also the one where we did the objection. It's a three-part thing. I object, sustain. Move to strike, allow. Move that you instruct the jurors. Jurors disregard that. All right. And once again, to ask and answer. Both sides, I think, made this objection. I heard it at least twice. And I told you when I went out there that somebody would say objection, ask and answer, because the other side had asked the question, was asking a question that y'all had asked. That's not a proper question. They can ask every single question that you ask, and you can ask every single question that they ask. It's not ask and answer if it's another side asking. Cross-examination, Emily, what was the defendant's demeanor? I'm not sure whether that's objectionable. It might be, but you got to try. You got to stretch, and you were doing that. No further questions. You left a lot of us wanting more. We wanted more. And I told you when I went out there, cross needed to be short, but we wanted more. I could not understand what detective meant. Needed more questions, and that's not usually the case on cross-examination. Dr. Wilson. Say pickle, pickle, pickle 3 times. You won't sneeze it. Dr. Wilson. Taylor Wilson. Medical examiner. You knew, where is she? You knew your part very well. You got some medical background? Okay. Well, you knew your part very well. And when you went up to do the diagram, I thought y'all should have had the diagram already done and pass it out.
We did, but then we realized that the diagram is from the actual case and it has another signature, so we didn't want it to be discredited because it's not her signature.
Well, okay, you could have not gotten around that. When you sent her up here to the diagram, I said, oh my God, is she going to draw a stick figure like that first one? But you did a pretty good job. You did a pretty good job. But I got lost. She was going so fast that it really, it just went over me. And you should always, always, always refer to your witnesses in the best light. Miss Taylor? Well, she's not Miss Taylor. Mrs. Taylor? She's Dr. Taylor. Remind these jurors, I got a doctor. You better listen to this doctor. Training, good. I also told y'all that I would notice this too. You say and a lot. Okay. You talked about the autopsies, and you did very well. You asked her how many autopsies she'd done, and then you asked her about any other special qualifications. You asked her to explain Gray's wounds. That was very good. You needed to stop her during the drawing and clarify. Let me hold you right there a second. Ask her remember all the questions that I asked about the numbers of the wounds, and does that have anything to do with the order they were inflicted, and is this an entry wound or exit wound? I kind of got lost on the wounds. And that was a huge piece of evidence. Are these wounds in the back? Are they in the front? Are they in the top of his head? You know, how do you get shot in the top of your head? Once again, all fodder for your closing argument. You got a little discombobulated, but you had good questions. You asked about the drugs, you asked about the aggression. And another thing that you did, no, I'm on cross. Oh, I'm sorry, Mia. Mia, you got a little discombobulated in the beginning, but you asked good questions. You asked about the drugs, you asked about the corrections. One thing that y'all do on this side, particularly you go, correct? Now, you were there, correct? And, you know, that's all right a couple of times, but you did it too many times. Blake Carter? Very dramatic, very real, great witness, great witness. She's actually your best witness, other than the defendant. So everything was too short. I mean, you've got a great witness here. You got out in front of her criminal past. That was good. You got out the fact that she's just not a really nice person. She's got a criminal past. And it was an entertaining story to hear her explain that away. A man that I thought would be with for the rest of my life. But once again, it was too short. This is your dynamite witness. And remember, I talked about telling the story 3 times. Tell the story 1 time. Get the damn state's own evidence. Get the diagram. And have her tell the story again with the diagram. And then get the state's own pictures of the deceased and have her tell the story again. Have her tell that story 3 times. Cross-examination, Madeline, you were very precise once again, and you got out the fact that the defendant shot the victim, didn't he? Even though she says there's a gun and it's all the victim's fault, you got out the little bit of gold that's in her testimony. The defendant shot him, didn't he? Yeah, well, okay, I saw that. And she is the only witness that says the victim was armed, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. You should have hit that more in closing, too. Jordan Keller sounded very real. It sounded like you were really there. And at times you would kind of go, I mean, you kind of roll your eyes almost as if you're remembering what happened. So my question for y'all was, did y'all reenact this? You're just going from the cold, dead script. Okay. Sometimes when you're doing this, if you actually reenact it, then that helps the witnesses. You didn't need it. I mean, it looked like you were there. You knew your part. Edron, I'm still not saying that right. He's a great witness. You just wind him up and let him go. And you had several witnesses like that. Only sometimes when you wind them up and let them go, you do need to stop and clarify and emphasize what they're saying a little bit. The demonstration was great, but the demo, you need to demo the whole thing. Once again, great witness. Cross-examination, who did that? Location of witness, good. You got your good points. The defendant shot the victim. Once again, the victim had no weapon. Okay, you got a defense witness who's now contradicting the other defense witness. That's gold. That's great. That's great. But you got to hit that in closing. He was a tough witness for you, but you got good points, and you also got this witness to say he was not sure about everything. Brown not armed at any time. Then you went too long and too far. Remember, I talked about that. Too long and too far. All those good things that we got to. I mean, I almost said, no more questions. But I wanted to let you go, see how far you would go. Lieutenant Dan. Where's Lieutenant Dan? Good voice. You knew your part. Just like a, Chief, don't listen to this. Just like a supervisor. Okay? Just like a cop supervisor. You know, standing behind your guy, but procedure. You're not going to say anything else other than what you're required to by the book. You know, you're standing behind your guy, but you're not making any, you're not adding anything outside of what the procedure is, just like a supervisor. I thought you did a good job. Emily, good questions, but once again, not enough. You need to make better use of this witness. Cross-examination, did not object to the touchy-feely stuff that he was talking about in the beginning, but that's probably going to come in, and even if it doesn't come in, it's come in whether I rule it out or not. So that was, I guess, maybe a tactical decision. Tanya Jenkins, once again, I got to ask, where is she? Tori, I'm sorry. You got medical background? Okay, well, it sounded like you did. You're very knowledgeable of your part, and you were like a professional witness. You don't care about this. None of your concern. You're just telling what you know. Okay? That's what made you believable. All right? So you did a good job. Mia, you started with the and a lot, and you said okay a lot too. And at one time you thanked them. You thanked the witness. Somebody over here did the same thing too. Kaylee, I got to tell you. You remind me of me when I was a young prosecutor. But you got to drink a little more water to put a little of that fire out. Okay? It will get you in trouble. It really will. We used to have a prosecutor here one time named Cal Collier, one of the greatest prosecutors in the history of this county. He and I were teammates together. We tried a lot of cases together. We had somebody watch our trials. Back then we had court watchers. One day Calvin and I were going to lunch, and this person comes up to us and said, "Can I speak to you two gentlemen just a minute?" And we said, "Sure." He looked at Calvin and he said, "Mr. Collier," he said, "you're a great prosecutor, but you got to act like you care. You got to get some emotion. You got to show us that you care." And then he turned and looked at me and he said, "Mr. Ammons, you need to calm your ass down." So we kind of needed to rub off on each other, which is what we did.
So Jennifer, you're sitting in the back there, you're an alumni. What was your reaction to that? When I got challenged.
Be careful with that.
Yeah.
Just from like an officer standpoint, just like watching other attorneys kind of do that. Maybe even if we are sitting there talking as officers and amongst each other, like, we need to yell at other judges. So I mean, I would just be careful. Not saying that you were calm, but like when you talk to different people, what you are for, you'll either go to law school or figure out wherever you get your job, wherever you're at, you'll kind of get the feel of that program. Because every program is different, every judge is different, every prosecutor is different, so.
What else did you say to me?
First, we got you out. Is that what you're talking about?
What would have happened if you'd done that in class?
Oh, I would have got my ass kicked out.
Yeah.
I'd be 10 feet underground right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, defendant, you needed, who did him, Adam? Come here. Adron. Adron, you needed, once again, you wound him up and let him go. But you needed to personalize him a little bit more. Tell us about yourself. You know, you're on trial here. If you're convicted of this, not only will you not want to be a police officer, but you could go to prison for a long time. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me what brought you to that night. Personalize him. Give him a chance to speak. Because as it turns out, he's a great witness. He's a great witness. You sounded like a cop. You said things like, in my mind, and then you would, which was very good. But not only did you sound like a cop, you sprinkled those things in that a cop would know he's got to say in order to get out of this. I mean, you know the law, you know enough of the law to start sprinkling some things in there about the law into your thinking. I was thinking this, I was thinking, oh my God, he's got my gun. I've got a taser. I got a flashlight. I can't use the flashlight because of this. I can't use the taser because of this. I can't do this. But the one thing I didn't ask him is, why the hell didn't you step on the gas? Remember what question I asked? Did you ever shut the car off? If a guy is in your window beating the crap out of you and taking your car is running, all you got to do is step on the gas. Whether you're going backwards or forward, he's immediately in trouble. Okay? But you didn't ask those questions. You said something like, at that point I'm thinking. You were very knowledgeable. Once again, I got to ask, you got a cop background? Okay, well, sounds like it.
That's what he wants to go into.
Okay. You needed to stop him and clarify a little bit. And it's always, he went on and on and on. And that's okay because it engrosses the jury. But sometimes when he goes a little too far, it begins to sound rehearsed. And of course, it is rehearsed because this isn't real. But if it was real, Of course it would be rehearsed. If it were real, it would be rehearsed, because you would have gone over this story with him many, many times. And like everything in life, there's a fine line. You got to let him go long enough to be engrossing to the jury, but when it starts to sound to you like, okay, it's starting to sound a little canned here, then that's when you stop. Let me stop you right there. Tell us what you meant by the gun wasn't in battle. Use those things like that to stop him, also to make the jury want more. Let me stop you there. Out of battery. The narration is good, but when it starts to sound rehearsed, okay. Beth, very good tactical objection. I don't remember what it was. It was one that I overruled, but you at least stopped him, and you got him a little bit off. Remember, after he came back, he said, "I don't remember the question." So it's not proper to use an objection solely to stop the witness. But if you have a colorable objection, if you're thinking about whether you want to use it or not, you might want to go ahead and use it to stop the bleeding a little bit. So good objection. You stopped him for a moment, and you said and a couple times too, and you thanked the witness too for questions. All right, closing. Kaylee, this is a case of that was very good. It was obvious that you were pumped up. And because you were pumped up, you went a little too fast. You personalized the victim. I like what you said, and you said it several times. His life was worth more than 99 cents. His life was worth more than 99 cents. This shouldn't have happened. You talked about the elements of the crime, but once again, it was too short, and I don't know what the time limit was.
5 minutes.
You didn't use 5 minutes. Emily, very good. You got up and thanked them. And then you tried logic on them. Okay, you tried a little logic. You, once again, personalized the defendant, serve and protect, put yourself in the defendant's shoes, but you went too long. And at the very end, you started talking about stuff that I thought, if you convict him, that's going to change the way that police look at things. You don't want to take the burden of the whole police state on. You don't want to take the burdens of all the problems with police, because there's probably somebody up there that wants to change that. This is not about police. This is about your client. This is about what happens to your client. Don't talk about what kind of message a verdict's going to send to something else. That doesn't help you. I thought all of you were very good. If I were the teacher, I'd give you all an A.
Now we're going to give you some information. This was an actual case. This was the Michael Brown case out of St. Louis, Missouri, where they wanted to try the police officer. Every bit that you heard today was
You want to bring the jurors back in to hear this
actual
part too?
testimony. So don't bring them in yet.
Oh, okay.
Was actual testimony. We had all the witness statements. So you heard the actual case. And people complained that the grand jury should have indicted him, but he never was. Darren Wilson was never indicted. So we thought this would be a good thing to see what a jury would really do. Do they think, and honestly, all these witnesses had the actual witness statements. Everything they said were actual witness statements. We had everything was the actual, I even had all the grand jury information. The FBI was involved, but Lord knows we'd be here for weeks if we got them testifying. But we had all of the information, thanks to Mark back there for getting it to us. So this was actual material. So this will be interesting because you heard it, to see what the jury does with this. Because it never went to a jury, as you guys know. Now you can bring them in. Let's see what they do.
Yeah.
But I just
Turn in here now.
What y'all got?
We just ran.
All right, who speaks,
All rise. The court is now resumed. Everyone will come to order and give the court their attention. You may be seated.
all right, who speaks for this jury?
Your Honor.
Okay, has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
It has, Your Honor.
Have you put it on the verdict form?
We have.
And have you signed and dated it?
We have, Your Honor.
All right, did you hand it to the bailiff? Are you kidding me? I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, take the verdict. Have the defendant please rise. And y'all can rise too, would be nice.
That's not right.
They stretched it out, not guilty.
And the Oscar goes to?
Yeah, really.
All right. In her
Decision
defense,
we reach,
Ms. Monica,
just real quick.
in her defense,
It was scribbled out.
they apparently found the defendant guilty of voluntary manslaughter
No, I made a mistake and misread it.
and then scratched it out.
It circled out in big X, it had a check mark.
I think that was shortly after I saw a couple of them walking into the jury room back there with cash in their pockets. And some was found not guilty. So your verdict is not guilty.
Not guilty.
Sorry.
Jury, what I told them is this was the actual trial of Michael Brown, the case out of St. Louis, Missouri. You didn't already pick up on that. All the statements the witnesses had were the actual statements. Everything was the actual material that we were lucky enough that we got. So all that you had presented to you today, if they had gone to trial, this is what would have been presented. We had everything given to us, that they had everything given to them. So this was the actual Michael Brown material.
But they didn't ask all the questions that
Exactly.
the lawyers asked. But we were missing information. You know, we really felt like
You know
we
what, why don't
missed
you guys introduce yourselves
Okay, sorry.
and give them feedback, that's important. Go ahead,
Oh, okay.
Ms. Mary.
I'm Mary Catherine Murray. I actually have taught at part-time at Methodist for sometimes. I'm a PhD psychologist, and I always get taken off juries, so I never get to be in juries. But anyway, the thing that I didn't like was your medical witness. She never made it clear where the holes were in the arms. So if the exit hole could have been, we thought she could have made a case as to whether his hands were up or not. And she didn't do that because she told us it was on the right side of the body, but we didn't get front and back in terms of where the holes were. And we just felt like there's a lot of information that we wanted. I can't remember, that's the thing that stuck in my head, but I can't remember the other information. Other people will have it, so.
Sarah C., professor in the Justice Studies Department. So one of the things that it all came down to was, did the prosecution prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt? And I had to say no. There was a lot of missing information. There was a lot of not being able to object to things that other people were saying on both sides, so that became kind of an issue with presenting evidence and proving a case.
Matthew Dempster, Director of Environmental Health and Safety at Methodist. There were a couple of jurors that initially were guilty, but when we looked at the actual definition as provided by the judge, the unlawful killing, you guys did not convince us that it was unlawful, because what we saw was that the assailant did in fact attack the officer, which in that case we believe that it was justified.
John Evers, professor of applied communication, and I voted not guilty. I'm still not convinced, but there were things missing in both sides, and I was leaning one way. They convinced me the other.
And if there's things missing, the state always has the burden of proof. Okay?
That's what
And that's what changed my mind.
The state has a harder job always.
That's what changed my mind.
Carla Weinbrenner, I'm instructor at Digital Forensics and Cybersecurity. And Daniel, since when did you start wearing hearing aids?
Always. I just don't wear them.
Uh-huh. I can tell.
I can hear the whole thing.
I think the biggest problem that we had was separating what we remembered from the case in the media and as it was playing out in the news versus what we were presented here. And it was totally different, and we had to keep our knowledge of what we knew of the case separate and only vote on what we presented here. And I agree with everyone, the state just didn't really prove the case.
So I'm Ashley Wright. I'm a junior in this program. So you guys talked about a taser at the beginning and it misfiring. So that kind of threw me off with that one witness. So I discredited everything from that one witness. And because the taser was never pulled. And then, yeah, so everything after that, I've been piecing together different things and the information wasn't provided correctly.
And jurors will do that. They will say, well, that's not true. So I'm not going to believe anything this witness says. They will often do that, even if they're confused about a point. So that's why it's very important to continuously clarify what's going on.
My name's April Rosser. I'm a librarian at NU. And I just want to say that you all did a really tremendous job staying calm under pressure. Like, I thought that there were a couple of moments there where, you know, it would have been pretty easy for all decorum to go out the window. And a lot of you did a very good job sticking with it. And it's difficult, right? Because you've invested all this time and energy into this, and when it's not going the way you want it to, it's hard to keep that straight. So it's very, very well done to those of you, and that's a skill that will serve you well as you go forward, whatever you want to do.
I'm Jennifer Taft. I'm also a librarian. And yes, you all did a great job. I'm always so impressed at how everyone stays in character so well, and you just do such a great job. I don't really have anything else to add other than we just had there was just a lot of unanswered questions that were brought up once and then not brought up again, like the teaser, so that was just kind of really fun part.
I mean, I've been in mock trials before, so I just want to say you guys did a really good job. I know how like nerve-wracking it is, especially if you like sit up there on the stand. So I thought it was really good with that. The other thing I have to say is that I think that y'all are really laid back as attorneys, and you could have argued more or like I guess like dug deeper into things, but y'all just kind of let it go. So it kind of lets a lot of things experiences.
Okay, my name is Sandy Sanders, and I'll be graduating in May with my degree in social work. I think this is a really good learning experience. So, like they were saying, I do like that you kind of stayed calm and was able to kind of slow down through your process. It's a learning experience. So whenever they're doing critiquing, don't look at it like they're giving you bad feedback. It's good to critique you, make you learn and do better next time.
I'm Tanya Gay, also a senior graduating in May, social work major. Once they explained the reasonable doubt, that's the only thing that swayed me, because I wasn't convinced, because it was listing things, but I think you guys did a tremendous job, especially in this type of setting, so good job.
Carla Fagan, chair of social work at Methodist. This is one of my favorite times of the year. I commend you for the efforts that you put into this effort, both prosecution and defense. this is a very personal thing for me. So I had to keep my emotions out of this situation. As I listened to you ask questions, respond, your dignity and your calm and your focus were very impressive on both sides. Thank you.
My name is Lori Russell Peabody. I am a senior social worker as well, and I will be graduating in May. And I think everybody else summed everything up, so I just feel you guys did a great job.
So my name is Matt Foreman. I'm in the occupational therapy program at Methodist. And I didn't even share this with you guys, but I was actually in graduate school in St. Louis when this happened.
Wow.
And it was a really, really big deal. We lived 15 minutes from where the riots were happening. We were like up at night, locking our doors, looking out the windows, like it was a bad deal. So I want to commend you guys with treating a really sensitive thing with a lot of respect and a lot of professionalism. We maybe didn't have all the facts, but the trial took a lot longer than like 3 hours. So I just want to kind of put a positive spin that way. It's a problem in a city that's still being fixed and unearthed a lot of deep-rooted issues in the way that the police work and the way that the government works in St. Louis. So yeah, I just want to commend you guys on treating such a sensitive thing with so much respect.
I want to thank the jury. You guys always take time out of your busy schedule to come and do this, and I really, really appreciate it. Do any of you students from Jack Britt have any questions or any comments? I hope you guys learn anything.
See how much fun college is?
That's what we do all the time.
Yeah. Again, I want to thank you guys. Jennifer, thank you for coming back. Any comments you want to make? Because you've had the minor, and now you are a police officer. What words of wisdom would you give to them?
You know, a lot, I mean, I remember being in this big spot, just not really taking it as serious as I should have at times. And I can't tell you how much it has helped me having my law minor as far as like being a law enforcement officer. I have a step above my peers.
because my professor had told me that when you argue for the Court of Appeals, they don't let you do that. They just hit you with questions. And I was getting very frustrated. And so after I got done, I looked at my professor and she said, Wendy, in the real world, you're going to have judges that ask questions and they're going to challenge you. And you have to sit there and shut up like you did. And Jennifer, you were telling me that they had 2 interns at the DA's office where you're at who had the nerve to challenge a judge.
Judge was handling a case or whatever, and decided to start yelling.
Oh. Don't do that. And let me tell you, a local judge here told my students one time, the word of wisdom he gave them is to take a theater class, because when your witness totally screws up, the jury looks at you and you have a pan face. And that is true. That is very true. And I'm sure you have to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Professor Vaughn, the last thing I'll say is you do this year after year, semester after semester. Everybody puts a lot of time in, the jurors, the attorneys, the witnesses, but nobody puts more time in than you do playing this every year.
Yeah.
And you take a moment to acknowledge you for your hard work.
I want to thank Judge Ammons, because honestly, we have been doing this mock trial 18 years. He hasn't done all 18.
Since I was 20.
Yeah, but he's probably done it at least, because we had Judge Tucker do it for the first couple of years, and then honestly about 15 years, 16 years he's done this, and I can't thank him enough for doing it. For those of you who want another real adventure in the fall, Judge Ammons, I'm warning you, we will be doing civil litigation, and we're back in this courtroom, but it's a civil case, guys, so you're going to love it. And so we will be doing a civil mock trial. I'm very blessed that my department chair, Dr. C, and everybody here supports me. There are no other colleges or universities in this state that do this. And so I'm really blessed that everybody supports me like they do. Sabrina and Carla, a couple of years ago, our civil trial was on cybersecurity, and they helped. I mean, there's no way my witness is. I'm getting occupational therapy to help me with the civil mock trial in the fall, because I don't know, it's a cool case, but I don't know what they're doing as an attorney. So I really couldn't do all that I do without all of your support, and I truly, truly appreciate it. And I truly appreciate you, Judge Ammons. So on behalf of the class, well, something to say thank you. And just remember, guys, we need to help Professor Josephs. Kevin, do you want to introduce yourself, because you weren't here? He is in charge of our mass communications. They're the reason we're here today. They're videotaping it. We have a wonderful mass communications program at Methodist University. Guys, I always say this, but I truly mean it. Come visit our campus. We'd love to have you. Your teacher, I can remember when you were at the PA building, and she helped me out because I do a lot of lectures for the PA program. One nice thing about a small campus is look how many professors and faculty and staff are here. You don't get to see that at other schools. You really don't. So we are truly blessed to have the group of individuals that we have. So I want to thank again all of you. Remember, we got to help them with their equipment. Don't leave. Got to help them.